You're doing 160 kph.
Hä?
Yeah, disqualified from quali.
Ich glaube, nee, ich glaube, das, weil du also deine Reifen haben durchgehend immer anfahren.
Ah, wow.
Deswegen.
Aha.
We are not the only
Pressure
ones.
off.
Mercedes AMG Williams Esports also disqualified. Hike Energy also
Like
disqualified.
energy also disqualified.
And Marshmallow Racing.
My what?
Good start, good start.
Focus on the race now.
Ah,
On.
fuck off.
So, alles gut.
Ja.
Kannst du mal aus dem Setup rausgehen, Frank?
Ich wollte jetzt das Race dabei einladen. Möchtest du
Dann
das selber
mach
machen?
das.
Race Set On. Was ich vorhin noch fragen wollte wegen dem Stintplan Calculations, ne? Wenn man jetzt die Full-Tank-Sekunden angibt, ne?
Ja.
Dann rechnet der das quasi selber mit den Litern pro Sekunde aus, ne? Das heißt, ich muss bei Fulltank dann eingeben, was von 0 auf 104 Liter ist, richtig?
Ja.
Ja. Okay, dann habe ich es mal corrected, sind dann 57 mindestens. Dann reichen wahrscheinlich sogar auch 7 Laps all the way. Aber ja, müssen wir mit den Deltas halt gucken.
Ja.
Aber
Also,
das
wie
hab ich
gesagt, die
auch.
40 Minuten Repair auch noch nicht eingerechnet.
Ja.
So. Kann ich wenigstens die Doku weiterschauen. Jetzt 20 Minuten. Ja, mach das mal im Ding.
Jacob's racing with PCS, that's why they got their boost.
Wir nehmen Single-Dinge. Den Plan mal als Dings vor, als. Ich war keine 2 Stints am Stück, mir tut nach einer Runde alles weh.
Okay. Kam da irgendwie eine Warning? Hat der Spotter da irgendwas gesagt oder war er instant?
Nö, ich war das erste Mal. Das kommt nicht wegen dem Burnout.
Leicester as
Wieso
well.
sollte man nicht 160 fahren dürfen? Und normalerweise kommt auch erst
Ja, weil
ein
ich
Spotter eine Warning.
Weil ich 20. Ja, kam es ja beim ersten Mal. Als ich dann wieder zurückgesetzt habe, kam die Black Flag.
Ach so, du hast noch zurückgesetzt, habe ich gar nicht gesehen.
And then those in between, the lower down. As much as they're supposed to be like an entry-level category, they are tricky to drive.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm with you. If you're gonna really drive, go GT3, maybe go TCR. I do miss the MX-5, I'll be honest. I do,
For sure.
I do enjoy a good bit of MX-5 action. Very fortunate though to have gotten a look at this track on board your BS Competition 89 machine with Ryan Barneveld will ride around for a full lap here at the 24-hour layout of the Nordschleife. You start, of course, with the GP section, and the balance of setting up for the GP and the Nordschleife are always a very tricky conundrum down the hill into turn one. Try not to get onto the anti-lock brake, and this is that switchback hairpin that gets a bit frustrating at times, but then you run yourself down through the GP section, and this is where you really have to set up your lap, because if you get it wrong at the start, you've got to survive those 25
Noch eine
kilometers before you get another round.
rausgeholt.
I kind of think the Grand Prix section, every time that I've raced the Nordschleife, like the actual drift,
Egal,
this
es
is
sind
the bit
24 Stunden rein.
you almost overthink. You think, Well, yeah, but if I can drive that massive circuit, surely this bit's like not that difficult. You kind of almost forget that it's actually a pretty difficult circuit where if you actually consider a standard race around here and seeing drivers separated by, you know, 3, 4 tenths, 5 tenths, you could lose a good second and a half around here by itself, up and over the curbs into the Schumacher rest. Still kind of calm. You're building yourself up, you're geeing yourself up because you know what's on the horizon. Throwing it in through the left, throwing it in through the right, and then you get your first real taste. The eye right there. The North is just to the right.
Warum sind wir disqualified?
The final couple of bits on this regulation
Breakplay.
section.
Wer hat gesagt, er soll es nicht machen?
Ja.
Wer hat...
Gesagt,
Nee, ich will jetzt hier auch gar nicht so sagen. Können wir einfach jetzt...
Okay, scheiß drauf. Außerdem, wir sind nicht die einzigen. Rig Energy ist auch und Mercedes Williams ist auch.
Much more downforce in this GT3 car as of a couple of weeks ago. Look how aggressive he was with the Hansen back. Completely flat out, but rolling his momentum here. Crucial as you run yourself in towards Quiddelbacher-Hoa and the Flugplatz to get a good run out of this final downhill section because it builds your momentum all the way into Schroudenkraus.
Yeah, out of Hokkaiken now and then down the hill, like you say, over the crest at Quiddelbacher-Hoa, which you can kind of walk quite a bit around this sort of section. Obviously there, as we rise up and over Flugplatz, take a deep breath, and we're all good. And pin it. Watch that throttle. Like you're saying, it is pin through here. So much downforce in these GT3s, all the way on that run towards Fadenkreuz, which is such a difficult corner. You've got to balance the brake. Just after it, you come over a crest, braking, tapping it, just getting into Armbar.
Let's actually see. I'm curious. He's still foot to the floor. I tell you, man. Some have criticized the level of downforce that these cars have, but we'll talk more about that later. Into Arenberg, you come down the hill, and now you see him use a bit of that curb on the left-hand side. Surprisingly, in towards the Foxhole, this is one of the fastest points on the track as you run down into the compression, into Adnar Forest. You just build up so much speed into 6th gear, but watch the line that you take through here. On the left, setting yourself up for this complex of Adnar Forest. A little dab on the throttle to roll the momentum through here. And this is where it starts to get to be fun. But you do notice, Lewis, long straight, even though we're running max downforce, top speed is important at the Nordschleife.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you've got to be able to balance it through the corners, over the curbs. It's honestly such a difficult track to pick a car around. I mean, look at it through there as we start braking again, turning, drop down the hill towards Kallenhard, where it's just so difficult. The undulation around here, it is so hard to set a car up. You need perfection, left, right and centre. Now we come up towards miss, hit, miss. Honestly, one of my favourite points of the track. I love it.
Yeah, well, miss, hit, miss, it's somewhat obvious. Missed the first apex, hit the second, and down into Wurtzeifen here, the slowest point on the Nordschleife. So easy to lock the left front as it goes up in the air. It won't cause too much damage, but you'll feel it and you'll see it on the steering wheel dash as you roll yourself now down in towards Exmüller. Coming up towards one of the most crucial corners on the entire track. Not here, even though this right-hander that you come uphill slightly off camber as you get to the very top of the crest, and sometimes you get a little bit sideways as you roll yourself in towards the louder left. But coming into Bergwerk, you make a mistake here, you feel it all the way up the hill into Bravery, the Mutkurve. Just watch the line that Barneville takes. Look how early he picks up the throttle as well, and we saw him going flat through Flugplatz. I would expect flat through the Mutkurve, through Bravery as well.
Yeah, this is flat all the way up towards surely up even towards the steel striker. Until you get to that braking zone, it's pinned for quite a long time, and you can kind of feel it that it's uphill here, but you don't really know like too much until you're behind the wheel of a car. It is such a steep climb, constantly going up, 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 rising up over the bumps, back over to the right hand side. Let's listen in.
Yeah,
easy pin, easy pin.
Now usually in the real world and in past iRacing, it's a slap dab on the brake, down a gear, but he's in 5th. You can see not even getting up into 6th. That's the degree of the uphill nature out of Bergwerk all the way into this right-hand hairpin. You've got another hairpin coming up. However, This is the carousel. It's one where you throw the car in, you hope it sticks, and you use the banking to get on the power nice and early. Look at Barneveld already almost full throttle and pops himself out. Oh, now this is where, if you ask me, things get so frantic, they get so fun.
Yeah, this is it, where everyone's done all their laps previous. This is the part that catches you out in practice. You kind of think, yeah, I've done the first bit of the lap ages, so many times. This part, though, as we head over the highest part of the track, then back through the right hand.
I guess like 42.5, 43.0.
This is the part where you really need knowledge pays dividends. You need to know which curves you can attack. Right there, Vipperman, you can bang it. There's a couple of corners later on which look sort of similar when you're attacking them at this speed, and you need to know which ones you can, which ones you can't. Esh back and down the hill, you can't really touch these ones. Not through that right hander. It's so difficult to know up towards YouTube corner and Brunchen.
Yeah, it's proper corner. We don't call it Brunchen, we call it the YouTube corner. He looked a little squirrely, but that's not the worst thing in the world through the Nordschleife. You're never going to get that 100% perfect lap. Here, though, is a crucial point, and it's a place where you may see damage brought to these cars today, in towards Flansgaard, one where you jump the car in the air and then throw it into the first of these double right-handers that leads you down into the Stefan Beloff S's. Such a high commitment point of the track, and if you find some lap traffic as you come over that second bit of a crest that really puts the car's nose up into the air, you come across a TCR here, you better be ready to get on the angles.
Yeah, I once saw a Ford GT40 crash at Flansgaard, and it was not a pretty experience. It's always heartbreaking when you do it. Though running up towards the Klein's Carousel, the smaller version, obviously not too big of a deal here, nice and pinned up towards, honestly, a really, really difficult corner. Galgenpop, there's about 3 different apex in there, about 4 different lines, but you need to be all the way over to the left as it's cresting over and coming back down. If you go slightly too wide, you'll know this, Arjuna.
Where can I find the YouTube?
Goodbye.
I've
nice knowing you, son.
Certainly never done it in an Indy car, that's for sure. This is a long run as well. And watch the gearing here. Without any draft, he's going to be very late to get into 6th and might not even do so, because just as you get to this point here, you start to climb the hill and the revs maybe just drop off a touch. You see they're actually falling now below about 6,120 RPM. So in the draft, it will help you tow up the hill. Maybe some cars will go for the longer gear stack, but I wouldn't think so. Balancing acceleration with top speed important in this car especially. Down the hill though into Tiergarten. Oh, what fun this one is. Look how late you get on the brakes. We've seen chaos here before. Don't think we're not going to see any chaos today, but through the final corner, nice and tidy, back onto the GP section for a lap here of the Nordschleife. And thank you to Ryan Barneveld for being our taxi driver through the ring, but what a fearsome facility it truly is.
I mean, I've got to say, Tiergarten, coming down into there, I mean, anyone who's done a proper qualifying session around here, and you know when you're on a good lap, and you're on the Duttinger, you're coming up towards it, and your heart is pounding. It's all you can hear is bang, 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 bang. As you know, you've got to balance the brakes coming into a pretty high commitment part of the lap, and it's so easy to overcook it and crash.
Quick look at your provisional qualifying results. Like we mentioned earlier, qualifying attached to the race. No week-long grind, and just a couple of opportunities to go flat out around the ring. And is it any surprise, your king of qualifying, Josh Rogers himself, a pole by almost half a second from the BS competition team that did win a couple of years ago, but your defending champions in the GT3 are Team Redline. Patrick Holtzman only good enough for 4th, about 1.5 off the pace. Redline Cup, and Diogo Pinto sits pole in your 992 generation Cup class, where Valtteri Alander then finds himself 1.5 in second position, 1.5 off the pace. The Mahler Racing team, what we've always got confusion is that a Williams is a BS competition entry. It's a BS competition entry. They're not in a BMW though. They're
Timo.
Aston Martin GT4 car.
Ja.
Der Luca Wunsch ist schon sehr aktiv da im GSR-Chat, ne?
Muss ich auch los.
Also ist schon cringe, kannst du ihm das ja schon mal von mir sagen.
Soll ich ihm sagen, dass das cringe ist?
Still got plenty of strong teams yet to come and set some lap times, including the likes of the Mercedes AMG Urano Esports team. Sam Poiter at the wheel here.
Der war nie bei GSR, oder? Ey, weil dann würde ich es verstehen, so. Weil dann wär er ja gebannt, wenn er von GSR weg ist.
Ja, deswegen. Jeder, der bei GSR war und nach Racing gegangen ist, der wird nicht gemocht.
Which is You know, we love saying it.
Der Typ
We
ist
say it a
einfach
lot.
von sich
That is
aus
suboptimal.
arrogant
Like
wie
you say,
sein
track
Vater.
position around here, you're going to lose a lot of time before like even the meat of the race has begun, and that is critical. You can't be losing that level of time right from the off. But if there's a circuit which you
Wir
can
werden
come
halt
back on, it's
rund
one
um
that comes down
Govand
to drivers'
starten
skills.
jetzt, ne?
Prediction time, Lewis. You'll be on a little bit
Da sind
later.
jetzt zwei Szenarien. Entweder er
Onboard
räumt uns den
car,
Weg
so
frei,
people can stick around to listen to you. I think
Ich glaube, er
now
räumt uns
it's
den Weg
9
frei.
and 10 and
oder
then
wir werden
17
abgeräumt.
through 20. So you'll get to see how close you get with your predictions, but let's start with
Eines der
GT.
beiden.
GT3, I mean, you know me, I can't ignore the pace, the skill. That, by the way, the GT3 category is incredibly close. I mean, there's some of the great drivers up there. There is so many good teams. But I gotta go Coanda. I gotta go Coanda on it. Sorry.
I wonder who's going to be completing their lineup. Of course, Josh Rogers and Mitchell de Jong don't have double duty with the World Championship, but it's a busy day for Coanda. Let's go then with the Porsche Cup. In fact, let me go first when it comes to the GT3. I think it might be the walking horse Williams esports team. I think Sami Matichogo's got a chance. However, I think it's a BMW.
Laut Sergio
I think it's
Medina
gonna
ist
be one of the
GT4 die
BS
Schmutzkarre
cars.
von
Whether it's the
iRacing.
89 or the BMW bank car, I'm not sure, but I think them, they'll come out on top for the second time in their short team history. 992.
Kova. I'm going against Redline. I'm going Kova.
Kova, okay, well, Redline has plenty of drivers crossing over. Diogo Pinto will be on double duty, so let's see how it goes. And that's always a tough class to figure out. I'm gonna go Redline. I think just the fact that they've got so much experience in their car will
Der Redline einfach 1,1 Sekunden.
I'm going Core on this one. I think
Yep.
you know Core have got a lot of experience in
Cup.
that car. I think
Gefahr.
that will pay dividends today.
It is always hard to bet against Core in GT4 class, but it's not TCR.
Pinto.
Ooh. It's close in qualifying as well, so I don't think there's a wrong answer here. Good for a run from the Sim 3D Sport Predator number 9 to be in second with James Armstrong, someone I've seen have experience around the wheel here. Urano's got an entry there too. I think Mala. I think
RSO though. Wow.
RSO's down in qualifying speed though. It's not always representative, I know, but I think. Oh, there we go. Changing my mind. Core Sim Racing. They got pole position. I was sitting on the fence. I got off it as soon as possible. What about the TCR class? It's totally chaotic racing, and it's a class where drag and drafting is going to be important. Urano's just gone pole in the SP10s. Maybe I should change my mind there.
No, I'm going back to back though. Team Rosenfeld. I think they're going to do it again in TCRs.
All right. Well.
There we go.
I'm going to go pure Sims, just so George Simmons doesn't get mad at me. We're going to step aside, or at least Lewis McLean is going to step aside. You'll see him later, but it's time to hand over to Radio Show Limited for our broadcast here today. Starting off the race will be Peter Mackay. I'll be joining him for the first 4 hours. Lewis, great to have your company, but Peter, take it away.
Thank you, Arjuna. Thoroughly enjoyable preview show there, chaps. Very much enjoyed that. Just little under 6 minutes to go in qualifying, so last chance saloon for any quick qualifying laps. Sam Koiter coming over the line. Not a great start to qualifying for the Arano Mercedes team up to now, but goes 7th quickest. 7:55.722 there in the Mercedes. Still Josh Rogers on top of the shop by half a second at the moment from Reynard Tal BS competition. A very strong team for them. Spengler.
Jetzt ist BMW Redline
Well,
cute.
let's see what Steen Ledger can do in the Pure Sims number 116, running the race number of Team Boss Ash Sutton.
Also du hattest
Not
Infos, die
running
ich
the
nicht
number 1
hatte.
plate, is the defending champion, running the new Hyundai Veloster, or new to the iRacing platform. Let's see what Steen Ledger can do. 858.9 to beat, and he does. 857.938 and goes to pole, Arjuna.
Yeah, good lap time there, and well, really using all this time, but don't count his chicken just yet. Here comes Patrick Kubinji in that Team Hoisingveld 404
Immerhin
car.
gibt's iRating technisch nicht so auf die
as well for the
Fresse.
final time in qualifying.
And doesn't that Team Hoisingveld 404 machine look nice in those silver, blue and red colours on that Hyundai Veloster? Patrick Kubinji in the defending champion car, Team Hoisingveld. It's a 857.790 and goes to pole.
And by a tenth and a half as well, no small margin. Patrick Kubinji, well, really taking the fight to
Warum will
Nielsen.
Quali end in 50 seconds?
Absolutely, a tenth and a half.
Hallo,
separating
Schiri,
after
da sind noch
25
3,5 Minuten
kilometers
auf der Uhr.
of a lap. Quite
Ich glaube, es ist nur für
incredible
uns.
there in TCR. I think we're in for a real cracker. Sometimes doesn't necessarily get the
Glaube ich.
attention it
Oder
deserves.
jetzt Omega iRacing Bug.
TCR category,
Wir
but at the
starten
moment,
ganz.
as we mentioned, Patrick Kubinji for Team Heusingveld leading by just a tenth and a half, but not far behind at all. Just about 6
Guck,
tenths
bei
for the back
fast
is
allen,
Majors
oder
Garage
eigentlich bei allen war die
FSR,
zweite Runde schneller.
Stolzenberg doing the qualifying duties there. There's a couple of GT3 runners still to complete their laps. Yelly Walters for the number 8 BMW crew. For a 5-star motorsport number 55, currently sitting 13th. Can they improve? Sitting 12th, my apologies. Let's see what they can do as you come up through Tiergarten.
Wegen Inaktivität bei uns.
It is a
Wow.
proper heart thumper, the Tiergarten, trying to get the car slowed down. Watch out for those curbs. Let's
Alter,
see what
Sport, da
Walters
fährt
can do. His
Florian
best up to now is a 7:59.918.
Z ist drin, oder? Wer sagt das?
Is this
Bei
gonna be an
GSS,
improvement to the
Also
line?
PDS, BMW,
Yes,
M4
the
GT4,
small one,
Nürburgring Pro. Ist drin.
7:59.278, so snips
Ich hab's
7
noch mal
tenths of a second
reingeladen.
off that qualifying.
Vorsichtshalber.
Big margins in qualifying. Usually these
Müsste aber
special events on
passen.
iRacing, the skill level at the top is so small and the difference between the drivers, but it's such a long track that, you know, mistakes add up, and we're looking at about 8.5 seconds splitting the 13 GT3 times that we have on the board. That's not a small margin. Don't expect it to be as big in race trim, but yeah, I mean, I love that qualifying's attached to the race now. Peter, you know, the thing it changes is it doesn't give maybe the smaller teams that have less iRating the chance to come and race
Okay,
as part
Quali
of this
will
top
end
split,
in
but it
50
means that
seconds
there's more
due to
pressure and
inactivity.
more on the line when you roll out for the qualifying session.
Well, I think one thing that's super important, particularly this is something that VCO, the company powering this event, what they're very much keen on is linking the real world or the outdoor world of motorsport and the virtual world as closely together as possible. And if you were going for that final qualifying shootout for the Nürburgring 24, or indeed for any Nürburgring Langstrecken series race, it's you know, it's a pretty short opportunity to get there and put in a qualifying time. So I think it's a super idea. I think it really does you know, mimic the real life very well, and the cream rises to the top, doesn't it, Arjuna? I mean, Josh Rogers, arguably the greatest driver in sim racing at this moment in time, a 7:52.639, half a second to the good from Rainer Talvar. That's a heck of a lap under pressure.
Yeah, I mean, by far the quickest time that I've seen in a while. I mean, we're almost a good 18 seconds faster than the real life. That's how much downforce we have. It's how much commitment you require around the lap here as well. He also does break the BMW stranglehold at the top of the field. Top 5 BMWs.
Eine Minute oder 2 Minuten, wie immer.
Yeah, I have to say the BMW
Geh jetzt aufs Klo, wenn du's
musst. A very stable machine is the BMW. The Porsche a little bit more fickle, but the Coanda SimSport outfit very closely linked to the Porsche factory and spend a lot of time with that car. And they had, back in the digital Nürburgring Langstrecken series a couple of months ago, they had huge pace, 1 lap pace under that car. But delivering it on race day, that was what eluded them. Can they do it in a 24-hour race? We'll see. It was Team Redline that won it last year. Do you think Coanda can top them this year, Arjuna?
I think you would be a bold man to bet against them, but I've already laid my stall out. I think BS Competition would be the ones to watch. Now, remember, they won this race in 2020. Last year, you know, not the easiest race for them. Plenty of contenders got mixed up in traffic. I have no doubt that we'll see something similar today.
Well, I'm certainly very excited. We're about to go racing for 24 hours here at the world's greatest circuit, the Nürburgring Nordschleife. A live timing available, racespot.wtf/endurance. Always good to have the time screen up when watching here at the Nürburgring. It's such a big circuit with 4 different classes going on at once. It's Peter Mackay here alongside Arjuna Kankipati making his debut with the Radio Show Limited team. So this
Gut, Gridding ist jetzt possible, Flo,
2022
vergessen.
iRacing Nürburgring 24-hour powered by VCO. It's Josh Rogers on pole position with Rainer Talvar for BS Competition on the front row. Then it's Team BMW Bank and BMW Team Redline, last year's winners. They'll start from 4th. Row 3 will be Valentin Manderdak for RHE Esports and their Porsche, and Sami Matti Trogan, a driver with a lot of experience in the real world, he will reel off from 6th. Sam Koiter and Vlad Kimichev
Flo,
will start
keep your
on
head
row
cool,
4,
no crazy
with Fabio
moves.
Besuch and Julian Egloff rounding out the top 10. Then it's
Einfach
Mauricio
entspannt fahren,
Cuero for
kein Damage
Pearson
holen, das ist das
Esports
Wichtigste.
and 5-Star
Good luck,
Motorsport
mate.
in 12th. And rounding out this very elite
Yep,
13
good
car
luck,
grid
guys.
for GT3
Thanks.
is Team
Gegen
RSO.
maximal minus 88.
In the Porsche Cup class, it's Diego Pinto. The success rolls on for Diego with Team Redline on pole, with Team Kova there in second. Row 2 is the Apex Racing Academy and Logitech Altus Esports. Then it's Pure Sims Esports and Team 75 Bernhard in 6th place. Asher Racing will start from 7th, followed by Carbon Simsport, RSR by Buttkicker, and NSH Racing Team round out the top 10. Then it's Zenith Esports and GermanSimRacing.de with the 13th car, Pascal Costa for Impulse Racing. Then in our GT4s, well, it's BMW
Ich lasse es ganz entspannt
1-2
angehen
at
hier
the
hinten.
moment in
Auf jeden
qualifying.
Fall.
Urano Esports
Ich hab
on
da
pole
keinen Bock,
with
jetzt eine
Carl
Runde durchs
Janssen
Feld
there
zu
in second.
pflügen.
Then it's the first of the Aston Martins.
Wie gesagt,
For Malav Racing Team. Then it's Sim 3D Sport Predator.
Govan neben dir.
Then just running through,
Er wird wilde Dinge tun.
T3 Motorsport, followed by Team Fordzilla, Team RSO, Simza Esports, T3 Motorsport, and Apex Tech Racing. And last few, SRC Mevano, Reich Energy, and Delta Sport round out the 15-car
Digga, ich hab einen
GT4
Halbtraum
grid.
heute Nacht.
Warum?
Ich hab geträumt, dass ich meinen Clio zerschossen
and it's
habe.
last year's champions Team Heusingveld on pole alongside Pure Sims Esports. Then
Schweißgebadet
Majors Garage and
aufgewacht.
Impulse Racing start on the second row with ProDrive Esport in 6th. And last few, Majors Garage in 7th, followed by Wizards, Photocharge Simsport, Sim3D Sport, Sunshine Autos, and Marshmallow Racing rounding out the top 12 in TCR. And last car, Last Minute Racing, starting 13th. Well, we're already on the formation lap. The drivers are prepared behind
Flo, willst du Spotting in irgendeiner Art und Weise, oder?
leads us into 24 hours
Pass,
of
ich
racing
hab Rückspiegel.
for VRS Command
Hobby.
Sim Sport Porsche, the double Porsche Super Cup champion, has so much credentials,
Warte,
so
Govan
much
steht vor mir,
experience
gell? Ja.
in
Der ist
the
rechts neben dir.
world. Wouldn't he like to add a 24 hours of Nürburgring victory here in 2022 to his already bulging CV? But he'll have to see off along with his VRS Commander teammates.
Ganz
The two
entspannt.
ominous
Ganz
looking
entspannt.
BMWs there from the BS competition outfit. iRacing pace car will pull out the way, and we will have the green flag shown for 24 hours of racing in the iRacing Nürburgring 24-hour, powered by VCO. Joshua Rogers holds the field for as long as he can and then opens up the Porsche. Green, 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 we're racing here at the Nürburgring. Down towards turn 1 they go. And it's a great start from Rogers, leaves the door open as well as the BMW bank car. Can I have a look? No, not quite. Rogers hangs on to it for now as they go through this really fickle right-left chicane. Careful not to get turned around there, but Joshua Rogers, clean away, Arjuna.
Nice clean start at the front, but some very exciting action further back as well. Here come the 992s. Now remember, the green flag flies for all the classes before they individually reach the start line. So they're racing out of Tiergarten and plenty of action through turn 1.
Already the Porsche Cup cars, these 992 machines, brand new for this year for the Nürburgring 24-hour, powered by VCO, and it's Team Redline who lead away into that class. We saw Team Redline having a disastrous start to last year's event with Gianni Vecchio being taken out on the very first corner of the race. The GT4s and TCRs already quickly into turn 1, not as big gaps as we're used to, perhaps in the digital Nürburgring Langstrecken series. The field will be a little bit more spaced out, but different format today, with Urano BMW leading away nicely, leading a BMW 1-2 in the GT4 category as the Hyundai Veloster-dominated TCR class head through the GP section as well. And say it quietly, Arjuna, a completely clean start. Very nice.
Yeah, I hope you're knocking on your RaceBot TV issued block of wood right now, because as they round themselves up through the Sabine Schmidt curve, this is when things might get a little bit more feisty.
Yes, I'm knocking on my Chinese writing bureau, which is where my laptop is as well, as we head on to the Nordschleife for the first time. This is one of the many helter-skelters along this track as Josh Rogers shows the way through Hatzenbach down towards Hoogeiken with 12 of the very best sim racers in the world following close behind him in a neat train. GT3 category. You think about how many cars enter, how many teams enter this event, Arjuna, and these top 13 in the GT3, they hold a very exclusive ticket indeed.
Oh no, they do. And it's such a demanding racetrack, just being invited to the dance, as it were, is such a big reward for these teams and drivers. But now it's all about delivering, right? The time for practice is over, the time for going fast is now, and they're staying single file, not unexpected. The question I have in some of the slower classes is what happens in terms of the fuel games? What are these cars thinking up and down the field?
Yeah, well, and that's a very good point. Looking at the fuel numbers during the week, I just don't know what's going to happen with that. We saw last year the winners of the Porsche Cup category, R8G, saving 2 full pit stops over 24 hours. Quite incredible, but they were, should we say, a liberal use of the clutch and a little bit of coasting going on from that crew. But it worked. It worked really, really well. As we have your GT4 runners on the left-hand side of the screen and TCR on the right. TCR being led by the white and blue Hyundai Veloster of Pure Sims, a pole sitter, and then it's the Renault BMW leading in GT4. I'm going to have to stop myself saying SP10. That's a Nürburgring
right?
car, Juna. We're going to open that place, I think.
Yeah, no, it's just the thing that always baffles me with the class naming in the Nürburgring Landstrecken series is SP9 is your GT3s. Now, they're meant to be the fastest. So why is SP10 the GT4? That's the only thing that sometimes, you know, really gets my chain going.
Then you throw SPX into that mix as well. Yes, it certainly is slightly confusing, but not such a problem here in the iRacing 24 Hours of Nürburgring, powered by BCO. They have GT3, Porsche Cup, GT4 and TCR. To ride with Julian Sonnen, you can hear the 4-litre flat 6 motor in the back of this 911 GTR singing as they head through Versifen down towards Breitscheid, and then up the hill towards Exmüller, almost as quick as you can say it. This is where the change of undulation, the car setup, so important to keep the car composed, keep it controlled. And I guess, Arjuna, it's not just about a one-lap pace here, it's about a car that's not going to bite you when the tyres wear away.
Yeah, in the GT3s especially, I think we're looking at single stints up and down through the field. No two questions about it. The update during the week has also increased the amount of wear on the tires. We saw some drama with some different tire strategy in your BMW Sim GT Cup race a couple of weeks ago, but even then, double stinting tires almost got some drivers into some big trouble. No question of that here today, but I do think, Peter, we've had our first bit of trouble, and it's, looks like it's a bit of TCR chaos down through Schwalbenkraut, maybe into Armenberg.
Okay, let's take a look at it and see. Yes, there's a little bit of rear of the field. TCR skittles with one of the Audis there, trying to pick a number on it. I think it is car 00, Miguel de Silva, Sunshine Auto as well. Very much dark clouds over the fortunes of that car, and I think they took the Sim 3D Ghostbusters car with them as well, the Hyundai Veloster. So half a lap into the race and already on the back foot.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right as well. The 89 car getting squeezed through the carousel by its sister car, that Team BMW bank car powered by BS Competition. Such an easy mistake to make, but you go wide through the carousel, you lose several seconds. Fortunately, only one spot lost there.
Yeah, Reynard Talvar taking the starting duties for the number 89 BS Competition machine. The always distinctive flying zebras, with the zebra pattern over the flanks of that BMW M4 GT3. Which made its NLS debut as a homologated car just a few weeks ago, finishing 5th in the hands of the Schubert team. And for a brand new car on a track as difficult as this, Arjuna, I'd say that's a pretty strong debut, all things considered.
Yes, although correct me if I'm wrong, didn't the first time that it ever actually raced in Angu was here at the Nürburgring, and didn't the junior team have a bit of an issue?
The junior team had we'll come back to that. It's the Team 75 Bernhard Porsche Cup car. Oh dear, the team owned by 5-time Nürburgring 24-hour winner Timo Bernhard. That car is around. Didn't quite catch where on the circuit that was. The rest of the Porsche Cup field already through towards Brünchen. So maybe around Wipperman, somewhere like that. That would check out because it's a very fast part of the circuit. No, it's heading up towards Huacht for Team 75 Bernhard, getting onto the curb and went early and hard into the barrier on the engine side. Oh, Arjuna, that doesn't look good.
Such an easy mistake to make, though. I think we've all done this before. Now, they may have gotten away with it because it's a rear impact rather than a front impact, which maybe doesn't compromise the aerodynamics of the car too much, but and not what we expect from the Batman livery Team 75 Bernard by Sim RC, as social media put it a couple of weeks ago.
I like that. That's cool. Yeah, it's good. It's the only thing I'd be worried about is the engine. Of course, the Porsche 992 Cup, the engine is, as is the case with 911s, the engine's right at the back, so hopefully not any engine damage for that car. The iRacing simulator is incredibly realistic in simulating the damage to a car in the case of an impact. But back at the front, we're almost at the end of the opening lap here of this 2022 iRacing Nürburgring 24-hour. It's Joshua Rogers who's opening up a bit of a gap now, about 2 seconds as they head into Tiergarten for the first time. Is this a mistake for a huge one for Talvar in the wall? Oh my goodness me, at Tiergarten, number 89, Rainer Talvar has plowed into the wall, and that car, he's had to wait for all the GTP runners to come through, and now he's taken a tow there about 200 meters from the pit lane, Arjuna. That is not good news.
Now that is one of the bigger impacts that you're ever going to see at this track. That's why he's taking the tow. I think Jan Sentikowski and your team RSO by Team
Gute erste Runde bis jetzt, Flo.
got mixed up in that one as well. Now, was there
Vorne
contact?
können jetzt wilde Dinge passieren. Im GT3-Feld sind schon...
I speculate that maybe there was some assistance there.
Yes, we see side-by-sides into Tiergarten, and they're good teeth-drying moments. Now, yeah, side-by-side with the red line car, as you mentioned, Arjuna, and yes, pretty heavy side impact there. Hard to tell. I mean, I'm definitely not getting into the apportioning blame. That's not our job, but there's a huge impact there. Oh, now who was that, Arjuna, that ran into the back of Talvar there? I didn't quite catch that.
I did not quite catch it either.
Okay.
Let's grab another look. Maybe Sammy Matty Trogan has a good perspective here in that Walker North Williams car.
Okay, so Sammy Matty Trogan, a very experienced driver in the real world here at the Nürburgring, races for Volkenhorst, and yeah, it's hard to say there. Just a little bit of side contact there from Team Redline. It's so fast. Oh, another car off. It's the 97 RSO Porsche Cup car.
Yeah, I was wondering why I heard a separate bit of contact, and then yeah, it's a mirror incident, isn't it? Same section, same amount of grip difference, I guess, and then off into the grass, and that Porsche snapped around pretty quickly.
I'll correct myself. It was the 97 GT3 Porsche, not the Porsche Cup car. My apologies, but Arjuna, I mean, we mentioned how exclusive it is to get one of the 13 tickets to race in this GT3 category, and we've seen a couple of huge incidents in lap 1 of a 24-hour race. It's quite unusual. Steen Ledger with a slow-down penalty for Pure Sims. In fact, coming to a complete halt in TCR. This is carnage in the opening 10
Pure Sims ist mit Quali-Fuel gestartet.
George Simmons
What
is going on?
Und jetzt nach der ersten Runde abgestellt.
I mean, it's a 24-hour race.
Pure Sims ist mit Quali-Fuel gestartet und hast nach der ersten Runde abgestellt.
Ich hab wir verstanden.
Nee.
Quite possibly. It looked like he pulled over on his own power and his own will. Pulled out of the way.
Die sind doch gar nicht bei uns in der Klasse, oder?
Nee, ist Cup
coming
gewesen,
down
glaube ich.
into turn 1, everything looks hunky-dory. Takes the right hander and then jigs to the left, and then all of a sudden just pulls out the way.
Has he blown the engine somehow? Now these cars do have downshift protection, so he's on the clutch. Yeah, he's blown the engine. You heard it as well.
Oh, well spotted, Arjuna.
My
goodness.
That is so weird, and that's why I sometimes think this, game of using the clutch to try and save fuel is not the smartest idea, because the downshift protection is there to help you, and not using it has really hurt Simmons there.
Wow, so George Simmons, leader for Pure Sim, or former leader,
Es war
Pure
TCR.
Sims in the TCR category, coming down into turn 1, has put the clutch in to try and save fuel,
So he
and has basically
blew his
let
engine.
it go in too low a gear, and it has blown the engine, it has over-revved the engine. We see drivers doing that and locking up the rears and spinning, but ruining the engine, that's
I'm not sure yet.
Towback
Like,
pit lane,
some
that will cost us
are
several
writing no
minutes,
fuel,
and then it
others
goes
are
to
writing
repair,
blue
which
engine.
will cost many more, so that's game over.
Race spot.
Pure Sims, and
Looks
thing
like
is, Arjuna, we see
they're
fight
saying the
backs
engine. He
in
clutched
some
in and
forms of endurance
downshiftted
racing, but at this
over rev.
level, you need a perfect run. You can't do that to win.
When there are no safety cars to come and save you, the absence of those interventions to try and
Somebody
make
else
the
said
gaps up,
qualified fuel.
you're done. It's day done. And Pure Sims was really thinking that you know, third crack at this track with the TCR. This would be their year. Unfortunately, it's the friend that's come to join the party. Of course, George Simmons is of the Apex Racing team. He's the one that's unfortunately spoiled the party for them.
Well, a little bit of good news for fans of the Apex Racing outfit. We're riding on board with the fourth place driver, number 199, Apex Racing Academy, Matthias Stockbeck Jensen. In the, now if I'm not mistaken, that's Apex Racing's shiny new sim racing.
No, it's not. It's more interesting than that. Well, Apex Sim Racing do have a, you know, spiffy center on the works. However, Matthias Jensen is part of Tronsskolen, which is a boarding school in Scandinavia. Now they've got many tracks, you know, horse riding, things of that nature, more regular school time activities. But most recently joining the party is sim racing. That is their sim racing facility in high school. Not too shabby, if you ask me.
Oh, we were born at the wrong time, Arjun. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's the dream. That's the dream. I'm just going to sit on the sim that board is good. Yeah, I'm sure there's more to it than that. But wow, what an initiative. Well, that's a great little bit of information there. So for ERS, Wanda Simsport leads Joshua Rogers by 2.5 seconds from Vasilos Belitsiotis for Team BMW Bank. Car number 7 has their sister car, number 89, BS Competition. Huge damage and a huge impact at Tiergarten, and that car still in pit lane. So after
yeah, they blew the engine. Pablo is looking at it right now. You can hear
14 minutes of this race, and we have the following in pit lane sitting getting repair at the moment. Number 89, BMW Team BS Competition. Number 116, George Simmons, Pure Sims Esports TCR.
I guess I was right about the use at your own risk comment.
Touring cars and Sunshine Autos TCR. So 5 cars hitting big problems on the opening lap.
To quote Lewis McClay, suboptimal. You've started with 55 and we love a bit of traffic, but we'll talk more about traffic in a second. Up the hill into Bravery. Is Core Sim Racing really going to try and sling it down the inside? How hard does Urano want to fight?
And you know that Carl Janssen he is not shy and he makes it work then. So Carl Janssen, the super sweet, goes to the front in the GT4 category in the BMW M4 for Core Sim Racing, and cleverly, very cleverly, I would suggest Konstantin Scharf for Urano BMW. Just let him have it. Just, you know, it's a 24-hour race. I'll tuck in behind you. This is where you've got to change your mentality. We've got a lot of drivers in this field who are sprint racers, and this is where you've got to put that. You've got to take that disc out, put it on the shelf, and put your endurance disc in. Because if you're a sprint racer, you've got the pace. It's all that mindset, though. I always think, Arjuna, you've got to take a different approach, especially here at the Nürburgring.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. There's the all-out approach, which will work, and you can get away with it in the 4 hours, you know, sprint, quote-unquote, races that the Nürburgring Landstracken series has. But 24 hours around here, when you can get, you know, damage from a curve that will then slow you down seconds per lap, when if you go side by side, you're in the wall, there's not much margin for error. Yes, I know the walls aren't necessarily on the sides of the tracks like they would be at a street circuit, but it's much the same mentality. Once you're off into the grass, there's very little chance that you save it without getting some sort of bodywork repair needed in the pit stop. So slowing it down, taking a mental chill pill, if you will, is important. Look at the train, though. It's also a great opportunity in these early stages to save some fuel and wait for, you know, that GT3 traffic to make its run at you that first time around.
Yeah, very good point indeed. At this stage, it's just about clicking off those laps, and if you can see as long as you can see the leader ahead of you, to be honest, between now and tomorrow morning, you're good. You're in an excellent position if that's the case. So at the front then, well, TCR has flipped on its head. It is neither Pure Sims nor Hoising Welt who are on the front row leading the way. It is actually Impulse Racing who lead the way in the TCR category in their white and kind of spearmint polo coloured Hyundai Veloster. But the Hoising Welt team again, you know, this is where they're so good. They won the Digital Nürburgring Langstrecken series, again, by being the most consistent runner, not necessarily the fastest runner, but the most consistent. Again, they did so winning this race last year in the TCR category. They've switched from the Audi to the Hyundai Veloster, which, judging by the early stages of this race, Arjuna, the evidence shows that that's the car of choice.
The new shiny toy gets the most entries. Why am I shocked about that one? Our own Tyler Maxson at RaceBot.tv will be pretty delighted. It'll swap around again in GT4 and tow down the Dottinger Hoa. And Konstantin Schaaf, not content to wait too much longer, he gets back in front of Carl Janssen, but here comes the double drop. Once you get past, you can tug back into line as well. This is why GT4 is so much fun.
Yeah, it's super, isn't it, as well? And the thing I love about GT4 is the cars are so close to the street version of these cars. So if you buy a BMW M4, it's about 80% the same parts.
So slow.
20% race parts go onto the car, but the GT3 is kind of the other way around. It's 80% bespoke race parts and about 20% from the base road car as well. So we've got two front-engined turbocharged machines, the BMW M4 and the Aston Martin Vantage, which made its debut here at the Nürburgring in the 2019 Nürburgring 24 and won on its debut in class with Alex Brundle, Peter Kate and a certain Jamie Chadwick. There's Janssen back to the front. This is a stunning battle in GT4.
Another team that hasn't got the memo that we're still 20 minutes into a 24-hour race, I think. But it's also close at the front of the Cup class, the 992. I'm shocked that Valtteri Alander, someone that I know more as an open-wheel wizard, is keeping Diogo Pinto this honest half a second as they run themselves down through the Hadsenbach in that 992 class.
I really hope they have a race engineer called James. That would be great. Valtteri, this is James. would be quite cool. But at the front of the Porsche Cup category at the moment is Diego Pinto, who, well, hasn't his 2022 started off well, Arjuna?
Leading the Porsche Esports Super Cup, not bad, I tell you. Look at that red line car as well. Have you noticed there's a new logo on the side of it?
Now, you can tell me, because my feed is a little bit fuzzy, but I think, is that what I think it is?
It is what you think it is, and it's even more interesting than that. It's a Red Bull logo with VerstappenRacing.com below it. Are we looking at the new future for Redline? Of course, a certain Max Verstappen racing in Australia today, so not able to defend his win from 12 months ago, but still here in spirit, I would guess, judging from that car.
Well. Of course, Red Bull Racing do have their own very prominent and successful sim racing outfit. Goodness me, what a collaboration that could be of the two. Oh my word,
scary.
Redline, and it is a scary thought, certainly for the opposition, that's for sure. But Diego Pinto leading the way in Porsche Cup, but does have Valtteri Alander right behind him for Kova. And unsurprising to see the Finnish drivers do so well here, because, well, it's almost just like a tarmac rally stage. It's just in a circle.
Stolen words out of my mouth. You just need the co-driver to give you the authentic experience. Although, if you need a co-driver around the Nordschleife, you're losing seconds a lap.
Well, it's an interesting one. I mean, it's because you can go around and do lap after lap after lap. Yes, you can kind of put it to memory. But yeah, if you were doing it once, a co-driver would be very handy. Indeed, that's for sure. So many blind corners. Is James Armstrong in the number 9 BMW in GT4 for Sim 3D, sitting 4th place with the number 91 Aston Martin Vantage right ahead. Number 91 running for the Mala Racing team, and I'll tell you what, the digital Nürburgring Langstrecken Series, Mala and the HRT Mercedes team, what a battle that was. It went right down to the wire. Unfortunately, Mala just coming up short at the last moment, but Mala, a giant in German engineering, particularly in the motor vehicle, and great to see them involved in the sim racing world. Now, back nearer towards the sharper end of the field, we have RAG Esports in 6th position in the GT3 category, the 888 car. That's Florian Lebiger driving that car, and he has Sam Koiter absolutely glued to his rear engine cover.
Yeah, now Sam Koiter, one of the crossover drivers that will be doing that Porsche Esports Super Cup later today. But he's not in a 992, he's in the Mercedes GT3 in that combination effort as part of that Mercedes factory program that, like Peter was talking about with the Hout Racing team, Urano, another one of those beneficiaries, Mercedes really taking 2022 as their year to leap into esports and sim racing just that little bit further. And not just them, did you see the news? We got Lamborghini with their own esports program, albeit not on iRacing.
Interesting, yes, of course, Lamborghini highly involved in the world of GT3 racing, and there's of course a number of platforms that you can be involved with, but yeah, Lamborghini really upping their factory presence in all types of motorsport. Actually, they've got a really good band of factory drivers as well. So the TCR train of Hyundai Velocitors continues as they head down towards Metzgesfeld. Now, if this was a tarmac rally stage, you'd have don't cut in your pace notes, because you do not want to hit that curve on the inside of Metzgesfeld. It's very fast there going through that left-hander, and Arjuna, all those TCRs giving it a very wide curve.
You say don't cut at that one corner, 170 of them. I'd wager maybe 150 of them would have don't cut, because the curbs here are so high that you can beat your car, and I found that out the hard way. Leading a VLN race, as it was known on iRacing back in the day, span through just after the Sabine Schmidt curve before you get into the meat and bones of the Hansenbach, and then beat myself on the curb and absolutely wanted to go cry a river.
It hurts. It really hurts. And the thing is, that could easily happen in the outdoor world as well. You could break a suspension arm or puncture. Punctures are very prominent here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. So very easy to do that. It's Will Chadwick for Team Fordzilla BMW. Don't ask. We haven't got the Mustang, the mighty Mustang yet, but actually, Will Chadwick there has set the fastest lap of the race in class. He's sitting in class 8th in class by hole.
How?
Clearly in a hurry to get moving.
Yeah, now he was not driving the Fiesta, the Ford Fiesta rallycross car, but that's about as sideways as you realistically want to be at any point during the Nordschleife. Just, he clips a bit of the grass on the entry to Bravery. You really try and set up the corner as wide as possible, and that is some pretty good reaction times. The interior of that car going to need a deep clean when it comes down pit road.
Well, Will really is the Iron Man in terms of endurance, but he's got the fast reactions as well, quite clearly. Will known for his Ironman stints. In fact, last year, Will ran an incredible amount of time at the wheel of a Porsche Cayman in the top split in GT4, and I can't actually remember if he managed to get a co-driver or if he had to pull over. I can't quite remember, to be honest with you, but he's always good for an Ironman stint. He won I remember commentating on a solo race, 12 Hours of Snetterton, which he won that as well in a battle with Matt Kyle-Henney, a real world Porsche racer. So he knows how to put in those long stints. But at the front of the Porsche Cup field, nothing to separate Diego Pinto for Team Redline, with Valtteri Alander just setting the fastest lap of the race, 8:14.863, immediately usurped by Andrew Kahl in third with no toll, Logitech Altus Esports. So Alander arguably had quite a toll from Pinto, but the man on the move, Andrew Kahl for the Logitech team.
You say that, but Kahl is not too far behind, so he might have been getting a bit of a benefit from the tow. At the front of all of our fields, only GT3 is not close. Rogers has set sail, 4.5 clear of that BMW bank car. Top 3 in the 992 split by just under or just over a second if I do the math quickly. GT4, well, you've got 8 cars in the leading train there, and in TCR, apart from the 3 that had issues, the 2 that got collected with one another through the Nordschleife, and as well as the Pearson's car that blew its engine. Everyone in that leading group of cars right now, not even half an hour into this race. If it continues like this, well, we're going to have no shortage of things to talk about over the rest of this 23 and a bit hours.
Definitely not. I think you're going to have a lot of fun, Arjuna, with Midnight Hour with Nick Damon. Be prepared for that. Nick's, no matter what time of day, he will release his endless library of opinions at will, but always very entertaining with it. As Urano Esports will lead another Talladega S battle into Tiergarten and out to complete another lap. Now, we've completed 3 laps of the race. We're now on to lap 4 for the top runners. Arjuna, fuel. Start with GT3. What do we think for a stint length for GT3?
Ooh, I think we'll be just under an hour. I think it's, here comes Janssen back fighting with Konstantin Scharf. These GT4s are really at a ding-dong battle right now, and in the popcorn seat is Felix Quirnbach in that Mahler racing car, the 303, the orange and white Core Sim Racing will get the lead, and here comes that Mahler Racing Aston trying to box out Urano for second.
Oh, well, we've seen that Mahler car just sitting there very patiently for the first few laps, and the patience is now gone. Felix Quirnbach has said, right, time to unleash the Bondmobile, the Aston Martin Vantage. What a wonderful looking race car it is as well. And still Carl Janssen at the front, mind you, for Core Sim Racing, leading with confidence there as well. But now he's got his mirrors filled with an Aston Martin rather than a fellow BMW. It looks like a really good balance in GT4 Arjuna. If I'm going to be honest, it's kind of been dominated by the Porsche Cayman for the last year or two, but really good balance between these two front-engine turbocharged machines.
Yeah, and I know in a couple of teams that enjoy that 718 were a bit disappointed it's not part of our choices for today, but I think you're right. It's so hard to balance that for whatever reason compared to the other cars. A bit closer with the BMW than at some other tracks, at least traditionally here on iRacing. The Aston has mixed things up. Of course, we don't have the McLaren racing today. But what a beauty, I must say. I love that Aston Martin. And some of the liveries that we've got today, for example, that Mahler with its white, with its green, with its blue, it just looks even better than I thought it was going to be. Although, you know, a Team Fordzilla, you know, is it a BMW, it's on Aston Martin, it still feels weird no matter which way it goes.
I mean, they could, a really tenuous link. They could have gone with an Aston Martin, which was owned by Ford at the time. But that was quite 20 years ago now. But that would be very tenuous indeed. Well, there's a call. So the poor Fordzilla boys, they need their Mustang. That's the next one on our endless wish list that we have as iRacing fans as well. Now, coming back to the fuel numbers, Arjuna, if I may, it's going to be tricky because if the drivers in GT3, if they can make 7 laps, which I think should be no problem at all, that will be about 56 minutes or so. If you can squeeze that 8th lap, of course that puts you over the magic hour, and you start to get into the realms of saving a stop by the end of the 24. Is that going to be possible at this stage, or are we thinking, are we stretching too much?
I think maybe in this first stage, where if you're, I don't know, Team Redline Red, who we're taking a look at now in that 71 car, you got a chance. You're in the draft of the Walking Horse. Williams BMW, maybe you can save a bit. You can save basically anywhere here at the Nordschleife. Every corner is a fuel-saving opportunity. I think once we get into the night, though, it will be a little bit difficult. The weather is about 24 degrees Celsius track temperature. We'll get down to 18, and once you get to that point, it grips up so much more. You're able to push that much harder and roll the momentum a little bit further as well. So I do think through the night, 7 laps is a little bit more likely. In TCR, we're probably looking at between 80 and 90 minutes. There's been speculation that maybe you'll be able to cut a pit stop there, but questions have been asked by the teams as to whether it's worth pushing to save a pit stop. Are you going to lose more time, you know, slowing down and saving the fuel? We'll see some gambles.
Blowing an engine.
Yeah, don't talk to George Simmons about that. He's pretty frustrated, I can tell.
I bet he is.
Yeah.
Shame. Sorry, George.
No, George is going to now send me an angry PM, not you. GT4 as well, I think, again, between 70 to 80 minutes, somewhere in that realm. Because we've got these big trains, I think we'll see some overcuts made in this first stint, because I don't think that tires are going to be the be-all and end-all, even though we're only expecting single stints throughout a lot of our classes. In TCR, you might see, you know, maybe only front tires in the first stop of the race and then all 4 of the time after that. But I think consistently we are going to be seeing regular tire changes as well. And that always adds time to our pit stop, so it's something to be thinking about.
It certainly does. It adds a heck of a lot of time to the pit stop. It's if you're a fan of say IMSA, for example, and you watch the tires going on at the same time as the fuel, that is not the case here. It's fuel and then tires. So if you do fit the new tires, you're effectively making an investment in time, and you have to gain that back, if you like, over the following stint. So a bit of a breakaway in the Porsche Cup category. The leading 3, led by Diego Pinto.
Ja, ich hänge den ganzen Stint hinter dem.
Ey, chill mal jetzt, ich bin sich safe.
Finden sie nicht immer noch safe. Aber die sind halt langsam.
Ja, dann auf der Döttinger versuch da vielleicht beizukommen.
In the coolest boarding school you're ever likely to go to, a boarding school with a simulator department. That's pretty cool. So he's in 4th position at the moment. I thought that was just a British public school thing, Arjuna goes to school on a Saturday.
Well, I guess you'd be incentivized. That's one way to get people to come in, as the Williams Esports Mercedes will dive down the inside of Valkyrie Competitions number 98. Also a pass from Julian Sonnen in the Porsche for RAG to get past Patrick Holtzman. I was definitely not one to want to go to school on a Saturday, but I could be enticed with a simulator day, that's for sure.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. It's a strange, strange concept, but my goodness me, that would be nice to do. Now the battle still rages on. The 88 car, Julian Sonnen, in the other RAG. We've got 2 RAG cars. We've got the 88, we've got the AAA. The 88 is the leading one of the 2 at the moment. Julian Sonnen in 4th. We've got Patrick Holzman right behind, and Sami Matti Trogan right ahead. There they are. 1, 2, 3. Sami Matti Trogan, a pretty good marker around the circuit. Of course, races in the Volkenhorst car, but not only the Volkenhorst car, Arjuna, the Volkenhorst Motorsport Alpecin anti-balding shampoo sponsored machine, which, as you can probably tell, is what my favourite car, our favourite livery anyway, for obvious reasons.
I hope Sammy doesn't need that. He's a very, very young man. 2019 iRacing Rallycross World Champion, which is really where I think a lot of sim racers took notice of him. But then signing that developmental deal with the Volkenhorst Motorsports guys, and it's great to see that blurring of virtual to reality. It's the likes of Moritz Lohner, who got a chance to race in the DTM Trophy in 2021. First race finished on the podium. Warren Heinrich, a 2-time winner of this race in the past, now driving for the Porsche, what's it called? The factory team, I guess, in the Super Cup.
He is a Porsche.
It's a this year's
Porsche junior driver, officially contracted junior driver. So yeah, that's part of that deal.
Ja, ich kann Too Wide im Tiergarten unten aufmachen.
I have a theory, Arjuna. Of course, he was up against. I mean, every year the Porsche Junior Shootout is an all-star list of young drivers. This year was particularly good, and Lauren was selected not only for his on-track results in the outdoor world. I have a very strong opinion that his adaptability to the simulator, being world-class in the simulator as well, was just that little edge that got him over the line, in my view. He'll maybe correct me on that, but I'm sure it didn't go against him.
Sehr gut, Pro. Weitermachen.
Vielleicht Samples a bit on, ist das soweit?
Ja.
Das geht auch für Bremsen, kannst du vergessen.
Junior driver this time for BMW at Imola last week, so I think there's definitely a point to be made about that as Mahler are through to the race lead. But it's not just there. I mean, Peter, you and myself, well, hopefully myself, we're showing that commentators can do the same again. Ding dong battle for GT4 continues.
Yeah, well, 100% agree. Yeah, it's top-class motorsport. It's top-class motorsport. And my goodness me, this GT4 battle is fantastic. It's Carl Janssens on the flash.
Und jetzt keep your head down, try to create a gap.
What are we doing here, guys? We can make a breakaway here, but I think they're actually having too much fun, to be honest. As Aston Martin hits the front here in the GT4 category, and that's the number 91 Mahler Racing team of Felix Kornbach with the Urano Esport BMW of Konstantin Scharf. In second, Carl Janssen dropped back to third now in the Core Sim Racing BMW as well. And the thing is, they've not made a breakaway, maybe because they've been switching positions back and forth, but they've got Sim 3D Sport Predator, James Armstrong right behind, Inertia Van de Waal, Sim RC, T3 Motorsport by Maniti, and then the sister Maniti car as well. So any mistake at all, and there is a whole cast of vultures there ready to pick up the scraps.
I'm not complaining about this fight, that's for sure.
Great.
I'm also not
brilliant.
I know, right? We talked about that Team 75 livery on the Porsche 992 entry for this Sim RC team. It is good to see the yellow and black Bumblebee car back in the action. I know David Haynes will be a little disappointed to be missing out, but he's also delighted that Formula One is back in Australia. So I don't blame him for wanting to be part of the action at Albert Park this year. I haven't seen what happened in qualifying, but I have no doubt it was exciting.
How drunk do you think David Haynes is this weekend?
Oh, he's an Australian. You know, they're the ones that go and bury alcohol in the desert, or well, in the rolling hills of Bathurst before they even get there. So bury.
He's waited a long time for it. We'll let him off. We'll let him off.
He was actually there when the people came to say sorry, go home. 2020 has been cancelled.
Well, dark times, but dark times with silver linings. Certainly in terms of the virtual motorsport world, I don't think we have the vibrancy that we do. Obviously, we were on a growth period when in virtual motorsport, but the COVID lockdown certainly did give a real boost to virtual motorsport. And you know, now that things are returning to normal, it really has kept up that momentum. And look at this battle at the front. Alex Neller for Nature's Garage. Alex, one of the front runners in the World Touring Car Series, which we broadcast on RaceSpot TV. He's right there in the hunt in this top split, but it's Impulse Racing who lead the way. Impulse are a team that are always thereabouts. Some great drivers on that team, and some good characters as well. Some good personalities in that Impulse car.
Oh, for sure. Multicultural lineup as well. They got a great Britain driver at the wheel right now. I think we'll get a South African entry from them as well later on. German is where a lot of their drivers are based, so that's one of the benefits of sim racing, right? You don't have to have all your drivers at the facility where they're going to be going through various levels of sleep deprivation. Instead, you can build the entry for your team and the schedule around the rotating world, which drivers in their preferred performance zone as well, because some like to be racing at night, some like to drive during the day, so it's all about being adaptable and making sure that you can figure that out. Having a look at what happened to a BMW, it's the 5-star Motorsports one, and not the first time we're going to see a car in the Armco in a solo car incident, that's for sure.
That's a pity. That car had just set its fastest lap of the race in 8:03.608, only 4.6 seconds off Josh Rogers' best, which was also set last time by a 7:59.0. You know, you might think, oh, that sounds low, it's 4.6 seconds. Trust me, 4.6 seconds around this place from somebody like Josh Rogers is no mean feat, believe me. Now, Impulse Racing here is threatening a little bit to try and pull a tiny gap here from Marcel T, one of the winning drivers in that Team Heusinkveld car last year. But you can never really get too far away in these TCRs. The relentless slipstream does play a factor. However, Alex Neller right on the bumper to the Team Heusinkveld car now. Is he going to have a look now down into Arenberg? And no, Marcel T makes that signal clear, saying, don't you dare go through there, young Alex.
I think right now, if you're any of these cars in the top 5 breakaway, you save fuel. I mean, it's such a draft-dependent car. I don't see the benefit of fighting beyond once you get into third, to be honest. Third is a good spot to be. You get plenty of fuel saving, but you get the ability to control where you are when the GT3s eventually come and lap you, which they will at some point with almost a full minute delta. And oh well, that Heusinkveld car getting a bit checked up, and that's why you want to be third. Bumper cars in TCR.
Oh dear, they just all got checked up going through Adner first. They sort of right, left, right chicane was one of the very rare bits of runoff on the circuit, and it looked like they just checked up there as well. So now a little bit of a separation. The 4th place car in Class Roby, Ferrari, I think was the car that got hit from the rear. Now there's a bit of a gap back to the 5th place car, which is the Nature's Garage machine of Konstantin Stolzenberg. So that's the pack now separating a little bit as well, and to try and catch back up onto the leading pack, not easy.
Yeah, no, once you lose the toe, it becomes that much harder to really close on in. Now, you're noting a lot of the Hyundais at the front of the field. The best of the Audis is the final TCR on the lead lap, where Marshmallow Racing are somewhat feeling the pain, if you ask me, with this decision, as we got some battles between the 992's Carbon Sim Sport and German Sim Racing alongside with one another into Tiergarten. Already 2 incidents here, and this time around it's German Sim Racing that's backing out of it. Do want to bring your attention, Peter, So this, which is the front of the Kova car, and you will notice a considerable amount of damage to the left front there.
I love the fact that you've got the early 2000s like football, Monday Night Football pen. Oh yes, brilliant, incredibly useful tool actually. So yes, for our listeners on RS1, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels, the audio feed, very heavy front right damage to the Porsche 992 car, the Kova machine, which was fighting for now now hold on a minute, still looks showing in second position. So has it run into the back of the Team Redline car possibly?
I just think it's running a bit low at the front and maybe it's clipped a curve. I think that's what's more likely, because I don't think that Diogo Pinto has let, or maybe Valtteri Alander is hanging back, but I don't think they've gotten close enough to bump, you know, bumpers with one another. I just think it's a curve.
Well, that is painful. That happened to Sami Matti-Trogen in one of the digital Nürburgring Langstrecken Series races. Took damage over a curve and it really killed the lap time in multiple seconds. Believe it or not, last time by Valtteri Alander did set his fastest lap of the race, 8:14.158.
Clearly not slowing him down.
Oh, obviously, yeah. I mean, however, he has again been in the draft, but I think he's been in the draft the whole race. So interesting stuff here at the front of the field, but that's going to cost time in the pits for the Kova team if they want to try and repair that. As Patrick Holzman heads through Meskisveld now, down towards Kallenhard. Really tricky part of the circuit here. Off camber a little bit, double right-hander, and then you go down through the triple right-hander. So we try and dissect from the mess. I think so. The GT4s now dealing with a little bit of traffic, but that's the RSO GT3 car, which did have to pit earlier on, which is a little bit out of position. Has come through in the GT4 pack. So as they cross the line, I'll say it quickly before it changes again. Corsim Racing lead from Urano Esports, from another BMW, from Sim3D Sport Predator, Mala, Aston Martin, former leader. They're back to fourth.
Yeah, bit of a change there. It's now 3 BMWs at the front of your field, but I think they've got the BOP pretty nailed on. We'll have to see which strategy. This GT4 is looking like a tasty fight. And
can we say it? Forgive me. Sometimes it can be a bit on the steel side occasionally. Sometimes it can be if you're going to keep an eye on the category, GT4 is not always the one on the top, but this is fantastic. The iRacing software engineers have done a super job getting these cars balanced, and I do believe that it is because they're both front engine, they're both turbocharged, which does make life a lot easier, whereas the Cayman, of course, is mid-engine, naturally aspirated, and the McLaren, of course, mid-engine, albeit turbocharged as well. So, and the McLaren, the thing is that the BMW M4 is a kind of mid-level kind of GT cruiser, whereas a McLaren 570 is a supercar.
Still waiting for BMW to give me a custom car. They gave Sadekis one for BMW SimLive, but they've got their commentators as well. I do, thoughts on the front grille, Peter? I'm trying to be nice here.
Oh, on the M4.
The GT4 looks very nice. What about the GT3?
Well, the thing is, this is the old model of BMW M4. We haven't had the new GT4 version of the new M4 yet. I'm sure it's in the works. Do you know what I would like to see? I would like to see the GT4 version be made out of the M3. Imagine that, a 4-door GT4 car. I think that would be kind of cool.
I do like that.
That would be cool. Now, I've seen the M3, the new M3, in the flesh, in green, and it looks absolutely fantastic. And the grille does fit in nicely, actually, I think. On the racing car, well, it just looks angry. It looks like someone's going to bite a chunk out of your rear wing, and it isn't a racing car's meant to look angry.
I agree. I think the race car actually makes the grille work more than it does the road car. The road car, especially when, you get the front plate.
I thought you were hankering for a free car on duty. You need to be nice about it.
If Timo is listening, Timo, I love BMW, but there are better cars in terms of the look. I agree with the M3, and they're doing something with the M3 that I have a longing for, which is a wagon. I don't know if it's coming to the US, but if it is, I will be looking into one.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Yeah, an M3 Touring. It's been a long time since I've had any kind of M Touring car. Yeah, that's give me one of those over an SUV any day of the week. But that's a midnight hour one. That one is as well. You should ask Nick David Arjun about some of his list of cars. He's had some pretty tasty cars in his time. Lots of fast stuff. But these BMWs, 1, 2, 3 at the moment in the GT4 category, but do not make any mistake, these Astons are right on the pace as well. Mahler Racing Team in there in 4th, and in 5th in class, it's the Inertia Ventival car. Lear. What have we got here, Arjuna?
I don't know. That's a crabbing 992, isn't it? That's not healthy.
Jeremy Lemire for NSH Racing Team in their Porsche Cup, and yes, the rear suspension is very badly damaged. The car going at a not very odd angle, and I think having to get it out of the way of the cars coming through, and doesn't appear to have a great deal of control over the car. Can't blame him. Do you know what that reminds me of? I was on the Azores rally a couple of weeks ago, and poor old Alberto Battistoli rolled his Skoda on the last stage, and it came through the stage at a 45-degree angle, and yeah, that's what that reminds me of.
That's what happened.
Same car. Okay.
So it's an odd place. I mean, it's easy to make a mistake out of the carousel, yes, but now where does it go wrong for him? Does he? Oh, it rotates on him. It snaps on him as he tries to get the power down.
That didn't look like a big mistake at all, really, just going through the Caracciola carousel, and the car just flipped around on him, and that is a perfect example of just how difficult the Nürburgring 24-hour is to finish, let alone win, because you've got to be pushing so hard at this level, and going through a corner like the Caracciola carousel, very heavily banked left-hander. If you get it wrong, the walls are right there waiting for you. So, back at the front, we're now on to lap 6 for the GT3 cars. So we would expect a minimum of 7 laps. 8 is a big stretch. Let's see where that falls, and who's maybe got a strategical play up their sleeve. We're just 50 minutes into this race now, so we are approaching pit stop time. And RHC Esports up into 3rd position. Good start from them, Arjun.
Yeah, Porsche's looking good, you know. I think a lot of people thought that the BMW would be the car of choice here, but I'm glad to be proven wrong. The Mercedes is running in 6th with Urano Esports and Sam Koiter, but I don't think many expected that to be one of the major players. It was really Porsche versus BMW. With you just look at the entry list, very much favored to the BMW, especially in qualifying, but Rogers running away in his 911. Here comes Julian Sonner now to chase down that BMW bank car. What, about 2.5 seconds in front of him last time around. Lap time's pretty evenly matched.
Yeah, very even indeed. And again, I'm with you, Arjun. I thought the BMWs are going to blow everyone away during the week, but that little bit of a balance of performance adjustment is definitely even things up as well. Of course, the BMW is getting 15 kilograms additional ballast, which is a lot. That's a big difference. And then half a horsepower taken away, half a percent of power. Sorry, I should say not half a horsepower, half percent of power taken away as well. So quite a big adaptation for the BMW, and it appears to have brought the Porsches back into the game. But it's Josh Rogers, 7.7 seconds to the good, and just set the fastest lap of the race again, Arjuna, 7:57.7.
He is flying, I tell you, as we grab a look at that move from the 88, just down the inside of turn 1, nice and simple from Sun, and not fought hard by Sami Matti-Troglin, but Rogers is flying. Now remember, he's racing from the esports racing, the Coanda esports racing hub. It's not a house anymore. They've got a huge facility which supports their efforts as well. I believe Mitchell de Jong will be sharing that car with him. I believe Mitchell is also in the house. I talked earlier about, being able to manage your schedule. You can't really do that when you're, living next to your fellow co-driver.
Yeah, that's another thing where, Coanda do, they have, in one way it's an advantage, but in other ways it's a disadvantage. If you've got, as you mentioned, time zones, if you've got all your drivers on one time zone, that makes a 24-hour race a little bit more of a challenge. That's, well, I was going to say that's what we're doing with you, Arjuna, being over in California, but we're burning you at both ends here. It's early doors at the
Yeah, fortunately no coffee is required, because otherwise I'd be a bit slagging later on. But yeah, 4 o'clock wake-up calls for me.
Geht letzte Runde jetzt, sagen wir.
You're talking about the, digital Nürburgring language track in the series. Phil Dinez, who's also on,
Ich danach rein?
California, so
Ja.
best
Okay.
of the US.
Deine fährst du ein Doppel oder nicht?
2:15
Nein.
wake-up calls for that series.
An Einsystems.
Yeah, and goodness me, Phil Dennis was just alive. Every time he got in the car, it was just fireworks. Drove so well and was just so unlucky not to win the championship, but put on such a show, fighting like a lion, like he always does. There's Urano back to the front in GT4. This is like watching a Moto3 motorbike race in GT4. Fantastic. Now to confirm, coming back to Coanda, Josh Rogers, our leader, he will be driving with Matt Backham, Tommy Osgard and Mitchell Leon. That's your team for
die müssen jetzt schon pitten.
at this, as according to Josh Rogers' Twitter account. So I'm gonna trust that as a reliable source.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Unless the social media team has made a huge mess up there, I think it's fair to assume. And it's a pretty good driver lineup, although all of them are Europe-based, which means that through the night they will get tired. How will they ration it out? How do they plan it out? With single stints, maybe you could keep your drivers fresh and be swapping every time down pit lane, but I think at a rhythm track like the Nordschleife, you want a minimum of a double stint for your drivers.
Yeah, I think so. I think a double stint is the way forward for that. But they're an experienced team. They've done a lot of these special events before, and yeah, they'll make sure that they're prepared and ready to give themselves the best chance to fight for a win. So Rano Esports lead in GT4 with Carl Janssen for Corsim Racing in their BMW second. Unusual to see that, of course, they wouldn't we would normally see Corsim Racing in their trusty little Porsche, but of course not an option for this race, just the Aston Martin and the BMW in the GT4 category, which is by far the most densely populated group at the front of the field. To update you in Porsche Cup, it's still Diego Pinto leading by a slender margin, just 0.7 of a second from Valtteri Alander, with Andrew Kahl in the third position right behind as well. That is your difference. You don't need the time screen there, and that's positive for Kova here, Arjuna. Despite that damage, they are holding pace.
Question will be, do they get any penalty in pit lane for having to repair that 707? We'll wait and see. Not due in for about 10 more minutes, I would think, a lap and a half more. But yeah, you see the other two cars are pretty clean. I think maybe there's a bit of crumpling in on the front right of red lines. 992, Altus looks clean. I wonder if they're just running that car up a little bit higher in terms of ride height. Maybe they're being a bit more careful with the curb strikes, although getting a better look at Redline's car, it looks pretty mint, as well as Alander's wide on the run up into the right-hand hairpin before the carousel, but survives there. These three cars, very much the class of your field, in a field that contains the likes of Pure Sims, Asher Racing, a team that you're very familiar with, I'm sure, Peter. Alander, another mistake.
Oh, no, I think Alander just keep it out the wall there. I think I just glanced down at the timing screen. You can't miss a thing here as well. Now, this is a critical point now for Kova, because they lose the draft of the Logitech Altus Esports car, which is now in second. That could be critical here, and that gives Redline an opportunity to make a breakaway. It's coming up towards the Caracciola carousel. It's caught a couple of drivers out in the Porsche Cup category, interestingly, and
just
looking like, yeah, Valtteri Alander just carried too much speed in there. The car just wouldn't want to stick.
I do need to be careful, by the way. The BMW overlords are listening in and have already sent me a message, so I'll be careful. Getting word, by the way, from Zach Campbell, who won the DNLS 992 category, that the 992 actually is pretty damage resistant here. So even if we're seeing some damage, it might not actually be affecting Valtteri Alander. So note that. Note pit stops as well in GT3.
Now that's interesting. Okay, so that's our 7 laps complete. There is our answer then. No, GT3 is going on to start in an 8th lap then. So we've got a huge pit party going on here in the GT3 category. Everyone in. Coanda, Team BMW Bank, Team Redline Red, RAG, both cars, Vulcan Horse, Mercedes AMG Urano, Mercedes AMG Williams, Valkyrie, Pure Sims, and Team coming soon, as well. They haven't thought about team names until coming soon. That will do. Josh Rogers waiting patiently for the fuel to go in. Now, let's wait and see if we see any of these cars pop up on their jacks, which means they are taking a tap. Oh, no tyres for Josh Rogers there, Arjuna.
I am fascinated by this.
Okay.
What I've heard. So 60%, that's the magic number. Now, maybe the track conditions are just cool enough that it's going to work out. I'm curious who's going to risk it in terms of taking tires. Looks like walking course with
Was dann der Fuel Usage Average?
So at the very least,
Auf 5 Runden 13,667.
70 seconds total pit stop time would be 4 tires. So that's what we're waiting for from Sami Trogan. It's gone over 60, 4 tires going on. The number 1 BMW.
Also mein Vorschlag wäre jetzt etwas zu underfuelen, also trotzdem für 7 Laps natürlich zu fuelen. Aber du kommst da jetzt wahrscheinlich mit 6 Liter oder so rein, weißt du, das wird uns viel sparen. Und
Jetzt noch
gleich noch ein Gap haben und alleine fahren. 12.
Ja gut, er hat jetzt noch 12 mit der Hälfte der Runde left.
Ja, wäre natürlich.
You know what I just realized? Patrick Holtzman behind the wheel of that 71 car. Last time he gambled like this, lost the victory on the very last lap of the BMW Sim GT Cup race at Sebring. He held on to his tires somewhat okay, but again, it's gotten a bit worse since then. Be curious to see what he thinks out of that car. Sami Trogan, by the way, getting word, was not a tire change. Instead, it was a pit road penalty, so he must have sped at some point on pit lane. So easy to do.
Vordet, der steht hohe 8, der fährt aber wieder.
Sami Matti, oh, that's
Score, der ist dead.
Mistakes that will so severely punished at this level.
Damage.
Yeah, that'll be a 30 or 40 second penalty.
Bei mir ist ein ganzes Auto.
Where has the 303 made a mistake? Because that is huge. That changes the game in your GT4 class.
The 303 Core Sim Racing GT4 BMW, Carl Janssen is spun, I think, near Whipperman, I think. No, oh, it's hard to tell with the camera angle. Yes, it was. It was on the whip run from Whipperman to S-back. So, Urano now charge ahead in GT4 and have a little bit of a gap back to car of Sim 3D Predator, and
same mistake we saw from that 992 car, the Team 75 by Bernhard car, where you know you're pushing, you get off onto the grass on the outside, and from there you just lose all control. And for Carl Janssen, that's probably the race done with 60 minutes off the clock.
Well, unless he gets very lucky with the damage on that car, but it was a pretty hard hit. Whipperman is a proper roller coaster ride. You're going left, right, left at very fast speed, and Janssen, you could argue, just took some pretty big risk there on the curb, lost the rear and smacked straight into the wall without much time to scrub any speed off. So that changes the complexion of things in that stunning GT4 battle. So now your leader in GT4 is Konstantin Sharper at Rano Esports. Then it's James Armstrong for Sim 3D Sport Predator. Then it's the first of the Aston Martin's Malo Racing team, Felix Kornbach. And then sitting patiently watching all of this going on all the while is Matti
Hey Flo, box.
for Inertia Van de Waal team in their Aston Martin. So all of a sudden, those who've been sitting patiently watching all this going on, Arjuna, they're looking pretty pleased with themselves.
Yeah, they'll be pretty happy right now, although I wonder if there's going to be a break forming. SimRC 1 second back from the inertia car, so starting to lose touch of them.
Ja, warum ist der hinter mir so viel schneller auf der Graben?
Gonna correct myself, by the way, from something I've been saying with the
Der hat mir
tires.
4 Zehntel jetzt abgenommen.
And, you know, the possibility of just single stints, getting word from teams in pit lane that because the temps are so cool, doubles are, you know, going to be guaranteed, they think. Triples might even be a possibility at night, as this is early for the GT4s. They're down on pit lane.
And everyone coming in to pit lane, so that is just coming. 7 laps completed for the GT4s.
6 Liter kannst du raus.
That's a possibility. Not, obviously not possible, or certainly not at this stage of the race. So all the GT4 cars taking their tyres as well as fuel. Jamie Chadwick brings the... Sorry, that's Will Chadwick brings the Fordzilla. That's the first time I've done that, actually. Sorry, Will. No relation, actually. Brings the Fordzilla BMW in, and Carl Jansen makes it to pit road. Clutching at some
Seid ihr sicher, dass 94 reicht?
Ich bin überzeugt, dass es
If you're
nicht
gonna
reicht.
make a mistake, you might as
Das
well do it on your own lap.
Nein, nicht 6 Liter nochmal raus tun. Ich hatte 6 Liter über.
Ach so, okay.
Lass bitte einfach mal jetzt so wie es ist. Danke.
Ich bin aber jetzt auch die ganze Zeit Windschatten gefahren. Also mein Max war auf 14,1.
Yeah, they'll be somewhat disappointed. They love themselves some of the GT4 TCR action. We'll see how it goes for them from here, but TCR is coming through Stefan Beloff and the S's. I was wrong about the GT4s maybe going a bit longer. I'm pretty confident the TCRs can do more than 7 laps. I think we're looking at 8 or 9.
Yeah, I've got 9, possibly 10 in my notes. Let's see what they can do. It could be that one of the cars deep in the train maybe pulls a joker out of the pack. But back while all the shuffling has been going on in the GT4s, we've got a different leader in TCR. That is the Major's garage car of Konstantin Stolzenberg with
einer von mir war nur 6 Sekunden vor.
Nathan Ames
die haben aber nicht gestanden, also die haben
keine Reifen.
Then it's Alex Miller in the other Major's
so,
garage
dann fahren
car,
wir nur
and
6
then in
Runden.
5th in the ambitious privateer white, ambitious privateer black.
Ja, das erinnert mich wieder an die Bahn-Taktik.
Here comes Team Oisingveld popping out of the draft, and they've got in front of Impulse and Majors. Whoa, that's a big old slide for them, but they'll wrangle it into submission. New race leader, Oisingveld back to the front.
Oh, and Alex Neller just getting onto the quarter panel of the Oisingveld car and getting.
Du hast ja nichts an der Bremsbalance geändert, oder?
Nein.
And very nearly ending in tears there, but Oisingveld car pops out in the lead to take.
Macht ihr die TT sonst an für die erste Lap?
To start a new lap then in this TCR category, fiercely fought, and despite the RG Virgin, Marcel T sets the fastest lap of the race in the TCR, 8:59.949, the first driver in this category to break the magic 9-minute mark.
Yeah, not a bad lap, I tell you. Although assisted by the draft pretty heavily, I think timed it well, you know, to get the move done. Highest I-rating driver is, at least in TCRs, to start this race of those still running, is that man Konstantin Stolzenberg, 7,404 I-rating compared to George Simmons with 7,445. That's the margin between them, as I believe Redline, it was RAG in their second Porsche, just gotten past Sam Coiter in the Mercedes, or maybe they're going to battle down into Tiergarten.
Oh yeah, Sam Coiter, he won't give it up in a hurry. Multiple national karting champion in his native Netherlands. And of course these drivers know each other quite well. Florian Lebiger and Sam Coiter raced in the Dallara iRacing World Championship a few months ago. So they know each other well. And they separate this Porsche and Mercedes, two wildly different cars in terms of specification. The GT3 Porsche,
Ja, passt schon mit dem Wetterdelta. Ich dachte gerade, ich bin von
naturally
48
aspirated right in the
ausgegangen.
rear of the car, whereas the AMG as well is kind of other way around. It's a 6.2 litre V8 in the front of the car, still the older version of the car. So it's got the big stonking V8, which you could probably power a small car very with.
I was going to save this for my stupid Nick Damon, but I'll mention it to you and I'll mention it to him later as well. But do you know the Mercedes that we have is actually the version that was tested and raced here in the SPX class in the NLS, or VLN series as it was known back there. It wasn't the actual final homologated version. There's a couple of minor details that changed, but by the majority, definitely the same car. From what I hear, we've already got one Evo version of that car that's been released to the customer teams to speed up a little bit. I think there's another Evo version coming as well. So at this point, that Mercedes starting to become your oldest car as the 992s onto pit road this time around.
So the Porsche Cup category then, our leaders in all at the same time. So they have completed 8 laps. That's on schedule. And let's see what the tyre strategy is for these cars as well. Fuel going in. These cars they are wonderful to drive, a real improvement on the previous model. But yeah, they can be quirky when they want to be. So getting on top of the style of driving for them is sometimes a challenge. As all of the leading protagonists go up on the jacks to put on new tyres. How many are, Gina? That's the question. Will we see any difference here between 2 or in case 4 tyres?
Oh mein Gott, der hinter mir gained massiv.
Again, these cars a little bit less downforce, so they lean on the tyres a little bit more compared to a GT3. But I wouldn't expect a huge difference, although again they are going a full on.
Alles gut. Das ist relativ auch so ein bisschen schwank, ne? Das ist immer auch höhenabhängig.
Looks like a bit of difference in the game being played here because Redline has dropped behind Kova and Altus when all things are said and done in the pit stop cycle.
Yeah, interesting there. That could just be a matter of fuel consumption, quite possibly. That's the thing is here with such a long lap, you can not only save fuel to try and save the pit stop at the other end of the race, but also to save time in the lane. You know, that if it could be that the Logitech Altus car came into pit lane with a bit more residual fuel, therefore took less time to top up. So we'll see how that one plays out over the course of the race. But of course now with the Logitech Altus car being the front gunner, Arjuna, now they're turning to be the domestique, to use a cycling phrase.
Yeah, no, they're the ones punching the horse. A good point. Although having said that, the last couple of laps, it did open up between Pinto and those behind. So maybe Carl and Nylander trying to save some fuel to get the move done in the cycle wouldn't be the worst call in the world. We're going to grab a look at something that's happened to a TCR. I believe it's the proto-charged SimSport TCR who's forgotten where the track goes. Now, I wonder if that's a hardware failure, although the way that he snaps back, I'm not 100% sure.
Do you know what that could be? It could be a screen stutter or maybe even an internet connection. But let's see what happens to the wheel. That's usually a very good... the wheel locks solid.
It's not straight though, it's... Oh, there we go, yeah. Oh. Telltale style of the wheel itself deciding to work again, or maybe it was plugged in, plugged out, but by that time, damage is already done.
Perfect timing. The 2022 iRacing Nürburgring 24-hour top split. That's when you don't want your hardware to let you down. That is for sure. What a shame. It happens in real world motorsport, and we have driver error, of course, and we have mechanical failure, and that's just one of them that can happen in the world of virtual racing.
Again, his word, sorry, Peter, that it was, yeah, all USB devices disconnected and then reconnected at the same time, so it wasn't just, you know, the steering, but the pedals as well, so he couldn't get on the brakes, on the anchors to slow it down and you know, minimize the contact with the wall and the impact it would have.
Oh, we've all had that horrible noise, haven't we? The pretty, knowing that the when your computer has just decided to disconnect itself, but just the perfect moment, not. Anyway, no such issue for our leaders in the Porsche Cup category, who have been glued to one another throughout this race so far as they head through Schwedenkreuz. A proper big commitment corner, especially in a Porsche Cup car. Speaking of Porsche Cup cars, got one driver having a little bit of an Austin Powers moment coming through Sabina Schmidt's curve. It's the number 5 car.
So the Zenith Esports 992, just look at the amount of opposite lock, and yeah, stop. How close can you get without hitting the wall? Sergio Ignacio must be counting his lucky stars right now.
Yeah, it almost looked like he fired down the gearbox to try and get it to stop as well as hitting the brakes. Of course, one thing about the Porsche Cup cars is they don't have ABS, don't have any kind of assistance system like that. You are on your own, but they are what a beautiful car to drive. You know, naturally aspirated, 4-litre flat 6. It's a big improvement over the previous model. Previous model had about 65% steel construction, 35% aluminium. New one flips that around, 65% aluminium in its construction. More wide body as well, and much improved aerodynamics, more rear downforce as well, and it does make the car, yeah, a little bit of a baby GT3. And yeah, don't be surprised if one of these cars sneaks into the top 10 maybe even the overall top 5.
Top 5 is going to require some attrition. I know what you mean. They're already...
Don't be surprised.
Yeah, but the leader in 992 is what? 3 minutes behind the GT3 leader, so he's about 2.5 back from your top 5 in GT3. The lap time delta is about 14, 15 seconds, which when you really think about a lap this long, that is not large. That is definitely not a big difference. I remember though with this generation Cup car when it debuted in North America last year, the fastest pro drivers were going quicker than the gentleman drivers in the GT3s. That's how quick this car is.
Oh yeah, and that was straight out the gate with no spare parts to fall back on either in testing. Yeah, the only thing I would say though is that the tyre, the Michelin tyre will be a sprint tyre. Whereas the GT3s will run on an endurance tyre, but nevertheless, you look at the relative cost, they're what, at least half, if not a third of the price of a GT3 car before you can get into the running cost. So yeah, amazing job by the Porsche Boffins in Weissach. Meanwhile, talking of Boffins, the Hyundai customer racing department globally, what a job they've done, not only in World of Circuit Racing, but in rallying as well. Oh, it's all Hyundai Velocities at the front at the moment, as R8G and Urano still battling over 5th position. And Lebigre, ever the Iceman, he is just not flinching to this pressure from Koiter.
Yeah, there's so much fighting going on, in fact, right now. You've got those two, R8G and Urano for 5th in GT3. That entire lead pack of 5 TCRs continues to battle. Patrick Holtzman's trying to get close to Julian Sonnen, who we haven't really talked about GT3, but here they come through the lap traffic, and that's why things have closed up. Oistingveld getting the bumper from the BMW bank car.
Oh, and this is where it's now getting a bit juicy, where the GT3's finally making their way through some of the traffic, and this is where the winners and losers begin. We've seen the drivers so closely matched in pace, really throughout all the classes. Oh, Julian Sonnen trusting that the Impulse Racing TCR had seen him there in full throttle, but this is the, well, shall we say, the adrenaline rush that is driving at the Nordschleife. It's not just the circuit, it's the traffic management as well. And we're still on the GP circuit, don't forget. He
did force Alex Neller wide, and Neller lost 2 positions. I think he's going to be somewhat disappointed about that one. The 158's down to 4th, but that Porsche right on the tail of the BMW as they climb into the chicane. Guess who's lurking? Patrick Holtzman too.
Oh yes, lurking indeed. Well, we're only 75 minutes into this race, and we have uninterrupted coverage for you here on Racespot TV of this 2022 iRacing Nürburgring 24-hour powered by VCO. It's Peter Mackay here alongside Arjuna Kankapati for all the action. Do let us know where you're watching from in the world. Who are you cheering for as well, most importantly? Actually, no, most importantly is, what are your race snacks? Arjuna, what have you got? Now, it's quite early in the morning for you. What have you got powering you through your stint at the moment?
I am controlled dehydration and snacking right now. The snacks will be broken out when I'm watching the middle 6 before I jump back on with Nick Damon. I think I might grab some raspberries. What else am I thinking? Maybe a couple of bag of chips, crisps here and there. But we got time. Switch for the lead in 992. Now, oh my word.
Oh dear. So here comes the Kova car going to the front of the pack there as they come through Tiergarten. That's Valtteri Alander to the front of the pack. Diego Pinto's shuffled up into 2nd position, so Andrew Callas dropped back from 1st to 3rd on this lap, but no such problem. He's right there in that leading group, but this leading 3, they are operating on another level right now, Arjuna.
Yeah, I mean, the lap times for them, fastest laps are only about a second or so quicker, but consistently they've been just edging away, 13 clear of Matthias Jensen in that 199 Apex Academy car, and then the gaps just get further and further back. It has broken up in GT4 as a result of the pit stops, by the way. That's why we're not taking such a close eye on them. Urano leads by about 1.5, with then a further 2.5 back to inertia by Vendeval in GT4. Still battles going on up the hill into bravery as Mahler concedes that Sim 3D Sport car. You never know that this is a 24-hour race. You think this is a 3-hour DNLS race, given how hard these guys are pushing.
Yeah, this was even, yeah, in a 3-hour race, this would be seen as pretty hefty at the front of the field. Urano leading the way at the moment in this stunning GT4 battle with Mahler Racing Team right behind them. Interestingly, there in that pit stop cycle, Arjuna, the third place car, Sim 3D Sport Predator, has just dropped back a touch. I think it's happened on this lap actually, because he's showing us ahead of inertia at the moment on the timer screen, but according to our pictures,
no, that's inertia behind.
No, that's correct. No, no, my apologies. I'll rephrase.
I think where the gap has formed is because Sim 3D were a couple of seconds longer in pit lane. I don't think if that was the stop itself. I think that was just, you know, the entry and the exit. 3 seconds slower than Urano, and you know, you can so easy to make up time in pit lane. It's so easy to lose it as well. And I think just being tentative for James Armstrong there, doesn't want that pit penalty that we saw from the Walkenhorst team, for example. That's cost him a little bit, but it's a long way to go. Not far away from breaking back into drafting range if these guys work together.
I mean, in a battle as tight as this, we've got all, you know, the leading bunch of drivers in GT4 have got such good pace. This is a great opportunity for the leading pair, Urano Esports, Konstantin Scharf, and the Mahler Racing Aston Martin of Felix Kernbach. They've got to try and, they've got a great opportunity here. If they don't fight too much, if they can work together as best they can, they could start to pull a bit of a gap and really, you know, draw the first blood in this 24-hour battle, land that first punch. But if they start kind of tangling about like they did earlier on, well, they'll be back into the pack in no time. Yeah,
no, I agree. You can see there's that Mahler car, right? Just for a brief glimpse of a second. Not that close, and Mahler's actually still within drafting range of Urano, so still 2 cars at the front. Now again, these cars going a bit shorter on fuel than I expected, but unlike the other classes, Peter, they do tires and fuel at the same time. So that does help them out very slightly.
Definitely does, yeah. That's a nice luxury of these GT4s, which ironically is they're actually a little bit harder to service than a GT3 car. One of the things I love about the majority of GT4 machines is they have lug nuts, like the road cars. You can hear them going in the pit lane, going like the old NASCARs used to be. I think the McLaren has a fancy one center lug nut, but the others have these sort of 5 lug nuts. So it is in the real world it would take longer to service one of these cars. But to look around here in the iRacing world is, well, Mati Kadisoya there using the grunt of the Aston Martin, which whisper it has a Mercedes engine. So maybe that's where it gets its entry from. It's a British car with a engine.
I mean, TF Sport's going to be racing a couple of the full GT3s in the NLS series. Of course, they were meant to race today, but weather has postponed that to November, where I'm sure the weather is going to be just as hospitable as it was going to be today. Here comes the fight back from the BMW. Talking of slow pit stops, though, of course, I think about GT4s, I think about Creventic and, you know, do you want to call it a fuel station that basically they've got? You don't refuel in the hot pit lane. Instead, you go to a tank like you would do on a drive down the coast, for example. You got to wait in line, and sometimes you'll lose a lot of time that way.
It is truly unique, the Creventic series. I mean, particularly at the Dubai 24 hours, it does look like the queue at a motorway service station at times. It's very funny. But a great way to save enormous amounts of cost for the teams, and that, you know, allows them to travel all over the world and race at some amazing circuits. A little bit of argy-bargy here between the Team BMW Bank car and the Team Redline BMW. Of course, don't forget, defending champions in this race last year. It was Max Benecke, Max Verstappen, and Chris Lullum. And taking the starting duties for this car is Patrick Holtzman. They're battling over 4th position at the moment, with the battling over 3rd place at the moment is the R8G Porsche, Julian Sonnen in 2nd. So this is 2nd, 3rd, 4th on your screen at the moment.
14 back from Coanda and Rogers, who has dominated so far, but it's a long race. You've got 3 other drivers. Do those other Coanda guys have the same sort of pace as Rogers? There's only one way to find out. I'm still a little bit intrigued as to those new logos and the new color on the side of that red line car. Of course, an official BMW powered team, one of 3 BS competition, the other one, and then on other platforms, G2 Sim Racing, you know, esports juggernaut, campaigns the BMW on behalf of the manufacturer, but it's a slight blue tinge to that car now, very similar to the Formula One Red Bull Oracle Red Bull racing car that it is now. We talked about the possibility of how scary a proposition that would be. Imagine if you had Sebastian Joe, Maximilian Benecke, Yuri Kastorp / Graham Carroll, and Gianni Vecchio in a shared BMW entry. That is scaring me, as that RAG car is a little bit wide, running down this back straightaway on the GP section.
Yeah, that is just all stars up and down the team sheet, isn't it? My goodness, but that's the
Geht gleich los mit Traffic, ne?
Right
GT3.
now, is that,
Ich habe Angst.
they would be not a guaranteed shoe-in for a win by any means. They would be up against the might of, you know, Coanda, you know, for example, the Apex Racing team as well have come from strength to strength in the last, you know, 12 to 24 months, really doing well in the Porsche Taycan Esports Super Cup amongst other events as well. So the standard at the front is just incredible. And when we see, you know, real-world racing drivers come to take part, it does give a pretty stark reminder of just how special these simulator drivers are. Hello to Daniel Lawson, who says he's cheering on Apex Racing Academy, number 199, who are doing pretty well at this stage. Lord Hedge, Adam Hedgecock is cheering on Alex Neller, a fellow boosted driver who's guesting for Full Racing. Now get this, Arjuna, he's snacking on butter popcorn and hot chocolate. So no such... Mr. Fish Tank himself, Adam Hedgecock, he's not worrying about the sugar fall off.
Yeah.
He's going to ride the crest all the way through.
I'm a little jealous. Well, maybe he's setting himself up for a, you know, a nice night's sleep, and then he'll jump back in the closing stages, have you in his ears again to take him through to the checkered flag as pass for the race lead in the 992, and it's Redline back in control here.
Now I'm guessing that Matt Madigan is the BMW overlord you were mentioning earlier on.
No, he's not.
Oh,
I got a private message from BMW. Matt Madigan's a teammate of mine who's not happy that I'm claiming that the East Coast is the superior coast, which not the superior coast in the US, which is clearly true, just because West Coast, Best Coast rhymes so nice.
Yes, they both have their virtues. I'm going to sit right on that fence. Both have their virtues. When you're West Coast, you've got Laguna, Long Beach, really nice weather, Canyon Roads. East Coast, you've got Road Atlanta, Watkins Glen. Yeah, they both Daytona. Yeah, they both have their benefits. That's for sure.
They do.
I wouldn't want to separate them. That's for sure.
They have their benefits, but I'll argue that just the weather makes this place nice.
Yeah, I'm very jealous of the weather. Also, now I'm completely impartial, but the Porsche scene, particularly in California, is one I'm very envious of.
It is.
I'm losing to the guys in front.
Norris, die kriegen ja auch
Although having said
Traffic.
Porsche North America Carrera
Nächsten
Cup,
kommt
they're on the streets of
Doppelpack.
Long Beach, aren't they?
Yes, that's
Also nee, einer einzeln und dann
a good trade this week. That's for sure.
Business
Yes.
is booming for Porsche, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, oh yeah, we'll go there. We'll sell loads of body panels. I'm joking, of course. I'm absolutely joking. It's Aston Martin's battling, heading up the Kesselchen in
Okay.
the
So
GT4
that's
category. It's the Team
Gibt a bit
RSO
too much grass.
97 chasing down
Ja, der war geturnt, ne?
Vano
Er hat geturnt.
course.
Turnen war gut.
The Vano course car driven by Dominic Gademeyer and Niels Carstensen for Team RSO. Now Niels was super impressive in the last DNLS season here at the Nordschleife in a Porsche, but adapting to this Aston Martin very well. Of course, the car's not been on the service that long at all, you know, maybe what, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, something like that. So not much mileage for the teams with this car yet.
Yeah, you know, a lot of the private leagues, for example, a 24-hour esports series that's been running, because the season's almost done, they don't include it in the championship, so there's not much serious running for the teams, for the drivers, to be able to get their competitive juices flowing and figure out where the the baseline is. They'll do their private testing, but that can only get you so far, and I think that's maybe somewhat what we're seeing here. Remember, that's the defending race winner, Team RSO. Yes, they were working with Team Oisingveld, but Niels Carstensen, Niels Lorenz, Leonard Hartenberg, and Manuel Weibel drove the GT4 to a victory last time by. Oh, there's a look at Josh Rogers. We haven't seen him all race so far.
Yeah, that's when you know you're doing your job perfectly, if you're leading the race and you get no camera time. That is for sure. That is well remembered, Arjuna. Of course, Team RSO, the defending GT4 champions. A very good point indeed. So, just coming up for about an hour and a half into the race, Joshua Rogers has opened up enormous, I mean, in the context of this race, an enormous gap, 13.8 seconds by really being the only driver who's able to dip consistently just under the 8-minute barrier, and proving that Porsche 911 GT3R is a fast piece of kit in this race, and driving it beautifully, coming through Stefan Beloff S. Of course, this car, the defending champion of the real-life Nürburgring 24 Hour, one of the best race finishes I think I've ever seen, with Kevin Esch, Michael Christensen and Matteo Cairoli winning the race for Manthey, a record 7th victory for Manthey Racing. I think it's funny, Manthey Racing, the most successful ever team, but poor old Olaf Manthey, despite being the most successful NLS driver in history, 30 overall wins, he never won the 24-hour race as a driver.
It's fickle.
If that irks him.
Yeah, well, I have no doubt it does. But this is a fickle race, right? It's a fickle race track, but at 24 hours here, when you throw, 200 cars basically onto the track, it becomes so difficult. And we have 4 classes here, but in the real world, you have so many more. It's so much more difficult to judge your way through traffic, and I think it's such a different challenge to even, for example, an IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship race now, where you've got the LMP2s, you've got the DPIs, the LMP3s, and then your GTDs. You've got 4 classes there, and even though it's so frenetic, and even when you go to some of the tougher racetracks, just this is so different. So many parts of this track are single line. The Hudson back, for example, you're not getting past there. Just one of the 170 corners to bring up into your minds. But you know, I'm saving away the pennies. I would love it one day to try, maybe not the 24, but an NLS race here. Sounds like a dream.
Oh, that or the M3 Touring, Arjuna.
Oh, that too. Just, I don't want to just drive the Nordschleife though. I want to race the Nordschleife, because there's two, like, you go for a tourist day, you got to be careful. You still got to be careful when you're racing there, and you got to be mindful that when you crash, you are going to be liable for the Armco repairs. But I want to do it. I want to experience this.
Yeah, maybe we could get a seat in a Dacia Logan. I think that would be the cool car to do it in.
Or
the Foxtail Manta.
There we go.
There you go, snap. Yeah. Now there's the GP circuit that we're on right now with Joshua Rogers is negotiating at the moment. The GP circuit was opened in the early 80s, and they actually, as part of the opening ceremony, they had Rally Opel Mantas doing a drift show to open the GP circuit.
I believe they do some rally here as well, although I think they do it in reverse to at least make it a little bit more.
Am I managing this traffic so poorly, or why am I losing to everyone?
Car park and the access.
Yeah, no, there's just so much that goes on here. Didn't they do rallycross at one point here as well? Now, not the Nordschleife, but yeah, you know what I mean.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did it quite recently, actually. It was freezing, apparently. I have from Neil Cole, who works on the Rallycross Championship. He said yes, it was rather cold at the Nürburgring Rallycross meeting as well. The Rallycross cars are in the Nordschleife now. That I would pay a ticket to see that as well. So at the front of the field, well, it's a good start to the race for the Majors Garage team, or run by Full Send Racing in the PCR category, as they come into Nathan Ames brings that car in. Konstantin Stolzenberg brings that car in from the lead of the race, and Nathan Ames for Impulse Racing as well. So the TCR cars just completing 10 laps of the race. So all kind of on, that's about on par with what we would think Arjuna, we think?
Yeah, I think 90 minutes. We are seeing some full services, I believe, from many of the teams. So it looks like 4 tyres rather than the 2 rears that maybe I thought they might risk. Maybe that will change during the night. It's a long stint if you stay out there. 3 hours, I know a lot of the diehards will say 3 hours in the Nordschleife, it's no problem, but sometimes you just got to balance in a long race like this how fatigued that you want your drivers to end up after they get out of the car. You don't want them, Peter, to really be crying for a break. That's the thing. So 90 minutes might just help the balance and get them through the opening stages a little bit better, but I do think through the night you might see some 3-hour stints as the norm for them.
I completely agree with you. I think if you can get away with, scheduling-wise, get away with just 90-minute runs, you're going to have an advantage, I think, because in that last half an hour of a 3-hour stint, your pace inevitably will drop off.
Ist Klickers Auto kaputt oder wie?
You know, the thing is here at
John Derrick war doch jetzt die ganze Zeit vor mir und nicht Klicker.
It's weird. You've made the mistake. You're in the wall. The car stopped. You go, what happened? What just happened? You know, because you're either so tired or so fatigued or whatever, you've just that tiny blip in concentration. You hit a curb and whack, you're in the wall. Game over.
Ob Klickers Auto kaputt ist?
Generally more prevalent, could we say, in the last in when you're heading to these kind of 3-hour stints or more. Unless you're William Chadwick, then his 3 hours is just a warm up for him.
Der wird aufgehalten von John Derrick. John Derrick ist slow.
Talking about monster stints, I refer back to Daytona where we saw it's a very different sort of a challenge. I know you can relax a little bit more at Daytona than you can here, but Go Vanchini did a 10-hour stint to start off the race. It was monstrous, and he was not just there to make the numbers up. He was fighting for the lead of the race, so can see some monster stints. I've done the 4-hour, NLS/VLN style races solo here before. Only issue I've had is here from Josh Rogers again. Only time we're going to see him today is when he's working his way through traffic. But the only issue I had with that 4-hour race was needing to use the bathroom before that final hour. And fortunately, it was a full-service pit stop, and I can't tell you how quickly I jumped out of my rig, ran to the bathroom, tried to get my hands as dry as possible after washing them before leaping back into the rig just in time to roll off the pit lane. It's stressful.
That's quite impressive, actually, to do that quickly. I can't say I've got that same ability. I do know that...
Jungs, glaubt mir, der Traffic ist absolut painful. Einfach pain.
Ryan Parkins, his Indy 500 trick is male nappies.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, well, I don't want to get in trouble for what I'm about to say, but Lewis McLean is going to tell this story later today. I'm going to steal it from him, and I'll give him full credit. It is his story, it's not my story, but I love it. I love this story. So Oscar Hardwick is one of Lewis's good friends, and he does a certain race in France, the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And that's, got at least the Mulsanne, right, where it's long straight. So you think that, maybe it's an opportunity while you're driving to relieve yourself into a bottle. But unfortunately, as he was working himself down the Mulsanne, he took both hands off the wheel to find the bottle. And in doing so, left control of the car up to the, hands of the gods. And the gods decided you're going to hit a bump, you're going to run yourself into the wall. Race ended just like that. So Oscar Hardwick learned the hard way not to how close you can really push it.
I always feel like we're slightly guilty. We're having this conversation before dark.
Yes,
this is normally an after dark.
Exactly. Oh, I agree. We won't go down into the rabbit hole. Last time I brought the story up, where we then started talking about catheters for sim racing.
Oh God. Okay. Let's park that one.
Take a sharp left turn away from it.
Yeah, let's take a sharp left into Porsche Cup Avenue, and look at this superb battle and the on track coming through Adner Force now, with Diego Pinto for Team Redline leading the way. With Valtteri Alander right on his engine cover as well, and Andrew Cal right there too. Now, is this a problem for Manatee? No, I think it's the SimRC Aston Martin. Does it stay out the wall? No, it doesn't. Now, did that car get a bit of a help with the RAG Porsche coming through, I wonder?
I think it did, and maybe we'll get a better look on board here. You won't see how close they were, but yeah, you just see the contact, not much you can do, and in towards YouTube corner, as it shall forever forth be known. It's so easy. It's like ice there to lose it by yourself. That was not lost by himself. That was definite contact.
Yeah, also known as Brunchen, and that's where a lot of the partying goes on in the Nürburgring 24. But
the steering damage.
Yeah, huge. That's really unlucky because the SimRC Hayden Burns there gave Anthony right up over the curb, giving actually almost too much room there, and you could argue, trying to get to his best to allow the RHG Porsche safe passage. And RHG Porsche, I didn't see which one, if it was the 88 or the 888, but Arjun, could you argue that it was the Porsche there was just been a bit greedy after being given plenty room to make it too safe?
I think they got the assistance of the valuable bit of air as well. It's not dilly-daddle around. It definitely looked like they had some technical gremlins going on between the two of them.
Digital air awake, you mean?
Yes, there we go. I love it. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I don't think either car is fully to blame, but I think if you're SimRC, you're definitely feeling a bit unlucky there, especially that RHG had already cleared off, you know, a decent amount to red, like red, for example.
This was perfect draft for me. Omega draft.
Space. All it's done is really left them in the clutch of the BMW bank. I think that maybe Hayden Burns will be on the blower saying, you could have been a bit more patient with me.
Yeah, I think I would agree there on that one. Hard to see how, for Hayden Burns, hard to see how he would think it was his fault. That's for sure. But I think that would be one way to sum it up. Now, great knowledge here from Dominic Engel. Hello, Dominic. Nice to hear from you. Rally Colm Arvailer uses the Nordschleife in reverse as one of the stages, like you mentioned, Arjuna. Entry is just after or before Galtenkopf, and the race, that's the corner going on to the Dottinger Hole, goes in the reverse direction and all the way back round to Bilstein Bridge. So basically, the only part it doesn't use is the Dottinger Hole. But in reverse direction, what a rally stage. Imagine that in a Rally 2 car. Oh!
I know you've been enjoying some of the European Rally Championship. I want to see one of those new, what are we calling them, WRC1?
Rally 1.
Rally 1, yeah. Massive aero, just insane speeds. I've driven a Fiesta, the rallycross car that we've got on the sim here, once or twice before, but I think that's a totally different kettle of fish. That sounds insane.
Yeah, and when that turbo boost, it's out the slow corners when the hybrid boost kicks in. You can actually see it just catapult the car forward. But yeah, Rally 2 Skoda Fabia for me, that would be. Yeah, that's what I tell you what. You do the NLS Arjuna, and then I'll do the Rally Arvailer in a Skoda Fabia.
There we go.
Rally 2. There we go. We've all decided there.
Now
who's
paying for it? Yeah, who's paying for it?
Yes, good point. Powered by VCO. No.
There we go, Florian. Well, quickly, let's talk about some of the new stuff that VCO has got going on, Peter, because I'm loving it. We got, Esports Racing League, 3 different platforms, challenging drivers to be adaptable. It harkens back to the old age of racing where you'd have someone do some Formula 1, then do some IndyCar, really mix things up, whereas now we're in a hyper-specialized world. Team Redline proving their worth as well. But most recently, got to announce this past Wednesday, VCO Send It, a print magazine for esports racing. Oh, it sounds wonderful, and I'm part of it. I'm just so happy.
Yeah, you've been scribbling away for that magazine. What was the article about, Arjuna?
What is the biggest race in sim racing?
Oh, and did you dare give an opinion on?
I did. I won't spoil the surprise. I'll say I considered 3 races. I explored what big can mean, because I think big has different connotations depending on how you look at it, right? So I looked at it from a couple different perspectives, talked to those around the community as well. It's on the cover. I'm a bit shocked because it's the first time I've ridden anything in the 6 years since I graduated college. And yeah, I don't think it's my best riding, but hopefully I get to do some more and I'll get better from here.
I think if they put it on the cover, that's a pretty good sign, I would say. Very good. Well, looking forward to seeing that coming out. I do like a print magazine. Right, I've got an app and stuff like that, but nothing beats the feeling of a print magazine in your hand. Likewise, a book over a Kindle.
Oh, I agree too. Very much agree with both of that. Other articles that will be featured in VCO Send It include a feature on Roman Grosjean, as well as the full story of Jimmy the Shed Broadbent, as I think he's now become known. So plenty of interesting features. You can learn more about it on the VCO social media. Something else that they're doing today, if you're watching on our YouTube, head on over to VCO Twitch. If you're watching on RaceBot YouTube, you're listening on RSL, go to the VCO Twitch. They're giving out, courtesy of iRacing, $50 credits to 5 lucky people who are watching on VCO Twitch. So a good way to maybe buy a bit more context and pass for your TCR lead.
Oh, as we've got a bit of a guddle going on here, so forgive me to use a Scottish word there, a bit of a muddle, basically it's muddled with a G. The Porsche Cup car trying to make their way through the plethora of TCR machinery, and also throw in a Porsche GT3R for Team RSO in the mix there as well, as looks like the Full Sim Racing Ventures garage car of Naveed Hussein has been able to survive that one the best, that little phase of traffic management. Naveed Hussein leading from Chris Shorter and Alex Neller. So Alex Neller, one of the only leading drivers to go for the double stint here, interestingly.
That's youth, isn't that? Surely that's just the youth.
Youth and exuberance.
Yeah. No, Chris Short, I talked about Impulse in their international lineup, right? Great Britain driver stepping out, income to South African. That's what sim racing is all about, right? People around the globe coming together and being able to work with one another. I say this with the big teams. Yes, they've got so many resources, and maybe Impulse isn't the biggest of them that you know, but something else that's so important is finding the right fit, because you spend so much more time. There's exponentially more practice that goes on here in sim racing compared to in the real world, that you really need to find a family, a group that you're comfortable with, and that's why you'll go across the world. You'll see, for example, Team Moisingfeld, mainly Germans. In fact, I think only German-speaking drivers, but other teams very much branching out and welcoming people in from across the globe.
Now, Luca number 56 reminds you, Arjuna, says, don't forget about VCO Infinity. What is that?
Oh, yes. Oh, I completely too busy talking about the Send It and how excited I am to be a part of that. But VCO Infinity, 24-hour races, Peter, right? When they started, it was initially more about man versus machine rather versus the car. Which car?
Da ist ja nicht irgendwie eine Regel, dass ich ihm das Karussell geben muss, oder?
Nein. For the most part, Toyota maybe doesn't want to hear this, but cars are pretty reliable, almost bulletproof, you'd say. So let's mix it up. It's sprint racing in the real world, 24-hour, 24 one-hour sprints. Why don't we do the same here in sim racing? 24 hours of racing, but 24 individual 45-minute races. 5 cars, 5 tracks. We'll mix them up and we'll throw ourselves across the world, across different disciplines of motorsports as well. And teams are allowed to bring 5 drivers, however they want to divide them up, to challenge themselves. That's a really unique way. 24 race starts, 24 race finishes. It's a good thing that we're going to have a few more commentators on that one, because I think we'd all just, even John Heindorf would lose.
Ja, ich war da jetzt extra vorsichtig.
Even our dear John would, yes, and that's saying something. He's a man of iron will and stamina. That is for certain.
Schade an die.
2022 iRacing Nürburgring 24-hour, powered by VCO live here on RaceBot TV, the VCO Twitch channel, and in audio as well on RS1, part of the Radio Show Limited.
Mann, ich würde echt gerne zu Derek nach vorne Zeit gewinnen.
Ja, ich glaube, das ist schon
or get out the car or whatever. Take us with you on your mobile device. Go on to the website and open up RS1 Radio Show Limited website. Just pop it into your search engine and it will pop up. And you can listen to myself, Peter Mackay, and Arjuna Kankapati. But the action does not stop. We have it completely uninterrupted. We will be handing over to the RaceBot TV commentary team in just a couple of hours' time. And Arjuna, who do we have? We have gracing the airwaves following on from us.
We've got a smorgasbord of people. Will Vincent, Justin Prince, for a couple of hours, then Stefan Schlacker will take over the reins.
Ja, ich greife so fest an meinem Lenkrad, dass ich jetzt meinen Finger nicht mehr gespürt habe.
Jetzt stell dir vor, du hast nochmal dreifache Kraft an dem Spielzeug, was du hast.
Ja gut, ne? Du hast wahrscheinlich auch dreifache Kraft in den Ärmeln als ich, ne?
Wenn du bist, kannst du auch TC aufmachen, nur wenn du nicht bist.
Glaube ich, lass ihn lieber an. Keine Crashes machen.
Kein Stress. Gar kein Stress.
Very good. Well, there you go. That's you do not miss a moment of this 2022 iRacing Nürburgring 24-hour and division flag to flag. Porsche Cup cars, well, are they going to be like this flag to flag? I wouldn't put it past them. Goodness. Diego Pinto for Team Redline leading the way.
Ist das jetzt gewollt, dass ich noch um die 33 Liter habe?
Ist gewollt, dass du jetzt noch 2 Runden fährst.
2,3.
Das ist ja easy drin.
Okay.
You don't have the campfires on the side of the track that give you a little bit more lighting. You're basically carving a path through the green hell just with your headlights. I do think it will open up.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think it's going to be who blinks, who makes the mistake here as well. All these drivers, these 3 drivers here, they're kind of almost sizing each other up like heavyweight boxers, just landing the little jabs here and there. No one is blinking, no one is flinching just yet between Diego Pinto and the number 707 Porsche Cup of Valtteri Landa. Andrew Callan, the Logitech Altus Esports car, so they're well into, they're just approaching the completion of the 2nd hour of their stints. A little bit longer to go for these drivers. They can go just past the hour. They go about a lap longer than the GT3 cars, and that's where my wild prediction of definitely a top 10 overall, maybe even a top 5 overall, Arjuna, is that's those saved fuel stocks. They've got a slightly bigger stint length on these cars.
True. No, they do. I don't know. I
will require attrition. I do agree with you there, but well, we had 4 cars go in the opening.
I would love to agree with you. I don't know if I see that as a realistic possibility now. Ooh, what's happened to that inertia Vendeval car? It's a GT3. Oh, I don't have a good feeling about this one. And yeah, oh, listen to the crunch.
That is a big hit there for the Vendeval Aston Martin, and that will be huge wheel and suspension damage, I would imagine. Now, does he get a help from this GT3 car? Oh, it's inconclusive.
I think
was that another bit of digital aero wake?
Yeah, I think just the littlest smudge of it.
Oh, that hurts twice as much.
Yeah, and I think that's probably day done for Matti Kaidasoa, to be completely honest. I don't think that car is going to roll again. I think the damage that they've got and the amount of time it will take to fix it probably drops them out of the race. And they drop one by one. It just makes traffic over the course of the race a little bit easier longer term, right? Because there's less cars now on track. They'll be a little bit more spread out at 25 plus kilometers, you know, less than 50 cars. It does help overall, I think, for the overall traffic picture.
That's a real shame for that machine there. The Aston Martin for the Aston Martin advantage, and they're already showing out of the session Matti Kaidasoa in Inertia Vendeval, so that's day done for them. That's an incredible pity, which arguably an avoidable incident there as well. Whoa! This Team RSO GT3 car goes for a spin now.
Hold your brakes!
Oh, good lord.
He did get clipped, didn't he?
I think so. The German sim racing car, even if it didn't clip the German sim racing Porsche Cup car, it did send it for a spin. Let's get another look.
I think it's the carbon sim sport car actually, as the windshield wipers do go. Yeah, oh my. Oh, and then German sim racing loses it after the fact, so that's what happens there, a bit of a chain reaction.
Now that was the car I was thinking, yes. Yeah, so I think it actually, the German sim racing car, which is the leader of the group, does miss the Porsche, but it sends it into a kind of a tank slapper and then whacks against the wall. And that's the thing, is where if the yellow flag comes out, you do have to take it seriously, because it is not there by accident.
I think it was just so quick, though. I don't think he would have got much of a chance to react to it. It's just so unfortunate, right? And that's, again, one of the dangers about having so many cars here. You could have the faster car blow by you, think you're safe, then he makes a mistake, and around it goes. To point out, that windshield wiper working, that's the future of iRacing. Rain, and at a track like this, imagine localized rain, which does happen. I think we're in for a really fascinating 2023, 24 hours of the Nürburgring, when that gets activated. How do these teams set up their cars? Oh, there's just so many questions yet to be answered.
I think it's the biggest change in, could we say, the history of iRacing?
Yeah, a bit bigger than when day-night became a thing, bigger than when multicast, was added back in 2014, the end of 2014. Multi-team is what I'm trying to say, team racing. I think by far the biggest change that iRacing will have ever seen.
Yeah, and it's yeah, huge step and another huge leap towards the, you know, blending even closer to the real world. And yeah, it will just put a whole new dimension of challenge into these races, particularly something like the 24 hours of the Nürburgring. I think our unit will take quite some time for the user base at any level, even at the very top level, to actually change the mentality, because it's a completely new mentality. You know, if you're on, for example, here the Nürburgring is a perfect example. Rain comes down, you're on slicks. You have to change the mentality entirely.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, it's damage limitation, right? How can you survive? And that's something I think sim racers struggle with. I'll try not to rant about driving standards, but sim racers might be the most aggressive motorsport, you know, clique that I've ever seen. I mean, a GT3 TCR racing in the real world is very elbows out, but it doesn't compare sometimes to multi-class interactions here. Someone dubbed LMP, you know, prototypes as "let me pass" classes. That's how bad it sometimes gets. So I knew that would get a chuckle from you.
LMP, I've never thought. How have I never thought of that up today? LMP, let me pass. I'll never unthink that.
But it describes to a T how sometimes I think the GT cars or even the TCRs, some of the crazier leagues, I guess, that do run that combination, feel when they see a prototype in their rear view mirrors.
I think there's quite a lot of that. I think that happens in the real world as well, to be quite honest, as well. Goodness me. Now we have our GT3 leader into pit lane, having not long set the fastest lap of the race, 7:57.4. Josh Rogers in the pit lane after 2 perfect 7-lap stints.
Now, will he jump out?
Well, he's done about 2 hours in the car, right on cue. And if the car goes quickly blinks, that means he is doing a driver change. Yep. Well, let's see who is going to Matt Backham now taking on the driving duties.
Hyper Matt, who loves himself a good race. He's got some big shoes to fill, that's for sure.
I thought you were going to stop your sentence there for a second there, Arjuna. I thought that's an interesting. It's like Matt Backham, he loves himself.
that he does too.
I thought, does he? Okay. I did notice the headlight flashing going on there, so maybe that's Matt giving us a little hello to our viewers here on RaceSpot TV. So driver change there. I mean, it's going perfectly for Juan the Sim Sport. They're used to being the fastest car here. They were the fastest car throughout the digital Nürburgring Langstrecken series. However, they were not championship contenders, just race execution not going their way. And another incident with the number 8 BMW in the GT3 category, not going to be popular is Jelle Walters after this first couple of hours.
And that's the Sim 3 third place GT4 car. Now,
noch eine Runde, gell?
is the big loser, the T3 Motorsport by Beniti number 3 car.
Ja, noch eine Runde.
The BMW for James Armstrong actually gets away with that one all right. But,
Fährst du danach, Flo?
I mean, I was just talking about traffic aggression. Proving my point.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Well, we've got a load of GT3 runners into pit lane and some already exiting. So let's run through the driver changes. Pretty much driver changes all the way around the up and down the leaderboard. So Matt Backham is taking on the race-leading DRS Juan the Sim Sport Porsche. Leads at the moment with
hier ist Milano wieder in the pits.
Ja, wir machen echt immer nur 6
number 88, he's in second. Bruno Spengler, real world BMW factory driver, in third. The Team BMW bank car. Luke Bennett is taking on
dann halt zweimal mehr am Ende, ne?
car.
Insgesamt, oder 3-mal mehr sogar.
Interestingly,
Sollen
Florian
sie machen.
Lebegre is going for a treble. Wow, okay.
Well,
Florian Lebegre, wow,
he's not going for a triple, he'll go for a quadruple at the very least, because we expect double stints, right, with the tyres on these cars. So that's a VLN style race length for him. Also, Bruno Spengler must have happy memories when he comes to the Nürburgring, not because of the result last year here in the iRacing race, but because his son was born midway or right before the start of this race, and so the BS competition guys very, nicely asked us, can we give you a new paint midway through the race so we can celebrate with Bruno? And of course we're not going to say no. BS competition shouting loudly that their man Spengler has another family member joining him on this ride.
I think that's a lovely thing, making Bruno feel at home and he's done a lot of racing with Team BMW Bank. He's been one of the real top regular, full-time real-world drivers who has really committed to the sim on a consistent basis. You see some drivers coming in and out, but you know, Bruno Spengler, arguably along with Max Verstappen, you think Max Verstappen's schedule, how he fits any sim racing in, I have no idea. But Bruno, yeah, he's definitely one of the most prominent figures from the real world, the outdoor world of motorsport in the virtual sphere. So Florian Lebiger coming, the new William Chadwick Ironman Lebiger in fifth. Alexei Nezov has taken over the Urano Mercedes from Sam Koiter. Ati Koppanen is on board the Williams Mercedes. That sounds familiar, Williams Mercedes, that's a link that we know. Jonathan Poulet in the Valkyrie competition machine. Lewis Nazar for Walkenhorst and taken over from Sami Matti Trogan, and Stanley Deslandes for Pure Sims takes over that machine. So driver changes all around in GT3.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good time. Get that opening driver out. They're cycling through traffic in some of these classes, GT4 for example, for the first time. So a good chance for the new driver to get up to speed pretty quickly and figure out what traffic's like, what the track conditions are as we get to just about 2 hours done in this 24-hour race. It's sunset. You can see it's getting darker, and you know, it's almost 6:15 here in our virtual Nordschleife. Again, because it's, you know, somewhat in the summer, we are going to have a lot more sunrise running than nighttime running. Kind of flip-flop to the last 24-hour race in iRacing. Daytona at the start of the year, of course, always has more nighttime conditions than daytime.
Yeah, and tell you what, when it gets dark here at the Nürburgring, oh my word, do you need to know the circuit. You almost, at that point, you're driving the circuit on muscle memory rather than anything else. That's where the practice laps, the endless practice laps, really come in at this circuit. Whereas at Daytona, of course, like I say, it's almost fully lit nowadays. There's between the actual floodlights and the circuit, but also the fairground, etc. There's plenty of illumination. Great to see so many of you watching here on RaceSpot TV and indeed listening on RS1, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels. Hello to Millie Tide Panda, of course, supporting her beloved Manatee Racing, as always. Now, interestingly, Arjuna, Anonymous12 says he's wondering what the lap times are for each class. Would you be able to run us through the fastest lap times in each class where we stand at the moment?
Yeah, and I think timing 71, racespot.wtf/endurance will help you track lap time per lap time running for these cars. So if you want a bit more of a granular look, head over there. But about 7:57 in the mid 7:57s for VRS Coanda, the fastest of your GT3 runners. That was Rogers who did that lap. In your Porsche Cup class, now the fastest recorded lap time is a 8:13.8, so about 14-15 seconds slower than the GT3s. That was Altus Esports and Andrew Carl behind the wheel there. Then in your GT4s, about a good 20-odd seconds slower than the 992 class, where we currently see the Mahler Racing Team with the 8:39.159 being the fastest in class. And TCR only a couple of dips below that magic 9-second barrier, but the quickest of all is Impulse in their 2:33. Chris Shorter has taken over that car, fastest lap in class. So about a minute separation between the GT3s and the TCR speeder.
You're watching the 2022 iRacing Nürburgring 24-hour powered by BCO live here on RaceSpot TV, live on RS1, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels. Another racing hour starts right now. So at the top of the field then in GT3, it's Matt Backham for VRS Coanda Sim Sports. RAG Esports sitting second at the moment with Premislav Lemoneg on board. Team BMW Bank are third with BMW Team Redline Red in fourth. Then it's RAG Esports, Florian Lebiger in what we think is a quadruple stint. He's on his third run at the moment. The double stint tire strategy seeming prominent. Looks like we're going to see him go for a quadruple stint at the Nordschleife. What a man. Alexei Nezov sits in sixth position at the moment for Mercedes AMG Team Urano, with right on his tail Ata Koipinen for Williams Mercedes in seventh. 8th position is Jonathan Poulet for Valkyrie Competition by Pelea, and it's Louis Nazar for Walkenhorst Williams Esports in 9th. And finally, rounding out the top 10, Stanley Deslandes for Pure Sims Esports. Arjuna, how are we looking in the Porsche Cup category at this moment in time?
I've been looking at a great battle between the three that have run away at the front of the field. Redline have led the majority of this race, but Kova kept them honest, so have Altus Esports in their orange and blue from the land down under. The Apex Racing Academy 199 car showed glimpses of place, which is about 23 odd seconds behind this battle for the lead, with 8 seconds margin back to Pure Sims in the 916, where currently Braden Werner, who has won plenty of races at the Nordschleife in a cup car, running in that 5th position. Dennis Aras Fabry is now controlling the 200 Asher Racing machine. They're running in 6th, about 9 seconds behind the 916, while Carbon Sim Sport might have a bit of damage for Jacob Majikowski's number 6, but they're holding on pretty nicely in that fight with the likes of the Impulse 215, where we see Pascal Costa behind the wheel. German Sim Racing have some damage after coming across the Team RSO GT3 car down in towards Wipperman, but Lucas Lippert still putting in some decent lap times and nursing that 11. He rounds through the top 9, and in 10th it is Zenith Esports. Let's have a look, Peter, at the GT4s.
Yeah, in the GT4 category, this has really been the most exciting battle throughout the field, and it's still raging on with Mala Racing Team. Well, they hold the lead with their Aston Martin by about the length of an HP pencil from Urano Esports.
Derek hat abgestellt. Phoebe.
Right now, absolutely nose to tail.
Ja, Galgenkopf links.
Ist mit eingestellt. Ist Flo on.
Ja, sollen wir vielleicht 2 Liter mehr reinpacken? Achso, warte mal, wir sind
Also das Beginn Refueling und so ist nicht angekreuzt. Jetzt machen wir jetzt hier. Ich wieder Puls.
Ich brauche 14 Liter die Runde. Wenn ich alleine fahre. Wenn er 14 fährt.
Niels Carstensen for Team RSO 8th, and Christian Kindler for Simsy Esports, and then Delta Sport in 12th position at the moment. And so ultimately, Arjuna, what about the TCRs? Very tight there too.
Yeah, it's been some good racing here for sure. And taking a look at your leader, one of the Majors Garage FSR cars, the 185 lead. Now traffic has very much broken this train up. At one point it was a 5+ car breakaway for the lead, but through the pit stops, through the traffic, Saying leads his teammate Alex Neller by 3.5 odd seconds. Then only within drafting range, 9/10 back to the Impulse 233 with the fastest car in class, fastest lap time in class. Shorter is behind the wheel. Team Hoisingfeld run then in 4th position as they look to go back-to-back after winning in 2021. Still plenty of time to go in this race, of course. ProDrive, Simona Medica sits in 5th with the Wizards team. Looking for a bit more magic in that 17 and 6. T3 Motorsports is 19. Is in 7th. Marshmallow Racing, the best of the non-Hyundais. In fact, might also be the only Audi running in our class here today. Protocharge Simsport and Sim 3D in the 21 through the top 10 in TCRs.
Thank you, Arjuna. So that's your rundown then, your hourly update here. We're just gone 2 hours into this race. 21 hours and 54 minutes to go here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. And, well, Porsche Cup category 1, 2 and 3, as quick as you can say it. Diego Pinto from the 707 Kova car of Valtteri Alander. And then it's Andrew Carl right there in 3rd position in the Logitech Altus Esports Porsche Cup category. Absolutely nothing to separate these top 3 cars in Porsche Cup at the moment. We've had a lot of driver changes in that sequence of pit stops there for the GT4. Just their 2nd pit stop just after the close of the 2nd hour. Niels Koch is now driving the Mala Racing Aston Martin with Sebastian
Warum sind wir denn jetzt so nah an Simsa rangekommen?
Urano BMW Dorian Tabachnik for Sim 3D Sport Predator. Then it's Tim Matzke for Manatee, and then Maxim Mariot for Manatee Red.
Stand da mal nur eine Sekunde weniger.
Die stand nur eine Sekunde länger.
So, ja, wahrscheinlich weil die mit DSC anfahren, das kommt schon noch dazu.
Yeah, I was probably holding them up. Anyway, Maxim Ramstein for Corsa Racing He's in sixth.
Ja, vielleicht aber auch eine schlechte Entry.
Team Fordzilla BMW from William Chadwick. Manuel Webel for Team RSO. And Fraser Williamson has got on board the SRC Movano course GT4. So lots of driver changes in GT4. This was a double stint strategy for there.
007 on the side of Aston Martin does feel right. A couple of things to point out with Mala and Urano. Urano, Schmallenbach team manager for that BMW and the entire entry, so he's not just, you know, organizing things behind the scenes, but a fairly decent driver as well. Niels Koch, someone that we're a bit more familiar, you know, seeing in a BMW with the BS competition team. Did you know he works for Mercedes? So represents Aston in today's race, usually seen in a BMW, but then his day job sees him work with Mercedes.
He's keeping his eye in every
meisten auch gerade, was wir machen.
Very important to have a good intelligence
Mit dem
network.
für 7
That's
Laps Fuel.
apparently how Enzo Ferrari ran his business. He had sources in almost every car company, certainly in Italy and probably beyond that as well.
I'm not shocked, we'll put it that way.
Have you read the book?
No, I have not yet, but I do want to.
I shall post you the copy, Arjuna. Brock Yates' book on Enzo Ferrari. You'll both love and hate him by the end of it. Put it that way.
I've watched the 100% accurate retelling of the story, Ford versus Ferrari, though I know everything there is to know about Enzo Ferrari and his interaction with the Ford Motor Company. Oh! That's Galgenkopf, isn't it? I think it is.
Yes, good spot. Yeah, Galgenkopf, one of the most important corners on the circuit to get that run out onto the Dottinger hole. Which car is that? I didn't pick the car number off it, and just understeers straight off, tried to carry too much speed, and bang, straight into the barrier.
Fourth. So John Derrick, I guess, was behind the wheel of the Reich Energy Grid and Go edition, so maybe just not much practice from the team name.
Maybe. Needing some more Reich Energy there, possibly. That's a pity. That is a pity, but back at the front in this stunning GT4 battle, it's closed up again. Niels Koch for Mala Racing Team with Sebastian Schmallenbach right on his case in the the Urano Esports BMW. These two cars have been in the front pack all the way through. Corson Racing have dropped back a bit, but they're not out of it. They're still well on the lead lap. They're still within touching distance. They're about at the moment, maybe about half a minute away at the moment from this leading pair. So still in the hunt, but no mistakes at the front here at all from Niels Koch in this Aston Martin, thundering its way down through the Niki Lauda links and then through one of the most important corners on the circuit, Bergwerk, because you need to get it just right to get this run up the Kesselchen. That endless power-sapping drag all the way up towards Mutkirch.
If you're in the draft here, you just feel like you're going faster. You look at the delta, how you're going, it's just like, where is all the speed coming? It's because you've got the hole in the air punched in front of you. It's so uphill that in some cars you'll stay in fifth rather than going up to sixth, just because even though it's so long, you don't have the rev range if you go up a gear and you grab that top gear. You could see Schmallenbach on the brakes. He doesn't want to pass. He's clearly thinking about a fuel game at this point, and I don't entirely blame him. These two cars have managed to clear themselves now 12 seconds away from that Sim 3D Sport Predator machine. So I think it's smart if they don't waste time, they don't fight too hard, and they just look forward to trying to run away.
Yeah, they're pretending to work together, but actually they're wishing nothing but misfortune to their opponents. But yes, at this stage, in a bizarre kind of paradox, they are actually working together, although they're trying to win the same motor race. One of these strange things of endurance motor racing. But yes, this is, to be honest, if you're the Urano BMW in second position, right on the tailpipe of the 91 Mala Aston Martin, you're in the prime position, because you can let your rival do all of the hard work. And you know, the only thing is though, is that what do you do on the Dottinger hole, because they're so close to Arjuna, and you've got 3 kilometers of pure straight roads. Do you just soft throttle, or do you go by? That's the tricky one, because being so close as that, the Urano car has got a soft throttle a lot to not pass the Mala Aston.
I think that you save fuel at this point, as long as you're still pulling away. If necessary, you do an Indianapolis-style swap draft and you know, let the other car lead, because clearly they've both got plenty of speed. It's like, by no means a Schmallenbach being dropped through some of the twistier sections where maybe that Aston Martin does look a little bit more planted. So maybe it does, you know, you give and go, you keep swapping back and forth. Might not be the worst thing in the world. Oh, love that shot. Over the jump at Flansgarden 1, all 4 tires off the ground. Got to make sure you're landing in a straight line, otherwise you are straight off into the kidney litter, you're straight off into trouble. And then in these GT4s where the downforce is so limited, compared to their big brothers, the GT3s, through the Stefan Beloff S's, you really are just sliding all over the shop.
Yeah, they are difficult cars to drive, the GT4, because they are actually not an enormous amount lighter than their road-going counterparts. I mean, the Porsche Cayman 718 GT4 is only about 100 kilos lighter than the road car that it's based on. And it's because there's only really just a little bit of stripping out, and that's about it. So yes, that weight is relative to the power is quite a lot to kind of hustle around. And yeah, somewhere like the Stefan Beloff S's, left, right, left, it's with no downforce, you really are asking a lot of the tyres through there as well. I'll tell you what though, if I was going to pick any of these cars for a couple of laps, I'd go with the Porsche Cup car though, Arjuna. It's just got such a lovely feel to it. The iRacing software engineers have really nailed it with this new model.
I was not a fan of the, well, okay, I'll correct myself. Wasn't a fan of the old Cup car at this track. I think at some other tracks it was really fun to drive, but this one, it's so hooked up, and it's such a visceral experience compared to a GT3 car. I've done many races in GT3 cars here, but it just doesn't compare. These cars are magnificent beasts, I tell you. And, you know, they have endurance racing capabilities where you can add ABS and some traction control, but stripped of them, it's so much fun. And I think that traffic's going to box out Redline, who will have to concede. Valtteri Alander takes the lead away from the 72 car in that 992 class.
Yeah, Valtteri Alander to the front then in the Porsche Cup category. They go through a little bit of traffic there. That is Maxime Ramstein, the Dutchman in the Corson Racing GT4 BMW, just as they make that pass, the leading Porsche Cup cars come into pit lane. Now, is this when we're going to see the first driver changes in Porsche Cup, Arjuna? Certainly with our leaders, 2 hours and 15 minutes in the race, it would be a big ask to ask more.
Yeah, I think at this point you're probably looking at the driver change. Do remember Kova have a couple of drivers racing in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup, so might have a bit of rotation. Alander wasn't going to be driving, of course. It will be Lasse Urainen taking over, who's a new recruit, by the way, to the team, and we'll talk more about him later. In your Redline Cup car, Gianni Vecchio's going to take over there. He's going to cut it close with his Super Cup responsibilities, and the man with the most fabulous name in all of sim racing, Simone Maria Marciano, behind the wheel of the Altus Esports number 12 now.
Yeah, he certainly sounds fast anyway, doesn't he? Simone Maria Marciano and Ty Simons for the Apex Racing Academy. They're having a really strong run in that 199 Porsche in the Cup category. So, Gianni Vecchio, I bet he has nightmares about last year's 24-hour iRacing Nürburgring event.
We don't talk about that one. They don't talk about it.
Okay. Well, we can. You know, it was involved in an incident at turn 1. Car was damaged, and that was it. Game over. From pole. It was tough to watch.
I tell you, this track is fickle. It will pick a winner at times. It's just as simple as that. And yeah, he'll be hoping for a better run today. I know that that Redline team, I think, is feeling invigorated, given how the last couple of weeks have been going. We mentioned their success in the VCO Esports Racing League, consistently on top in these 2021 special events as well. Last year in some of the sanctioned ones, the likes of Watkins Glen, they won all 3 of the classes that we had. So they're just going from strength to strength right now, and I have no doubt that leading in one class, they're in the fight in GT3s, even though Coanda seems to be by far the strongest in class. I think overall they'll be pretty happy with how this race has started.
Yeah, so definitely on on schedule, I would say, for Team Redline. I mean, a team with such pedigree, you know, one of the longest standing sim racing teams in the world, over 20 years they've been going in one way or another. Originally drove titles like Grand Prix Legends, of course, and Toka 2. I had Toka 2 on my PlayStation. I enjoyed that. Winners of the first iRacing World Championship and winners of the first online F1 Championship as well. So they really have been here since the beginning.
And they're working on a facility in the Netherlands to try and bring the drivers closer together. It came in handy during the virtual Le Mans where Rudy Van Buren was racing from home. His wheel then failed, and so for the remaining hours that he had to do, he drove to the Netherlands, got acclimatized to the rig that Kevin Siggy had been using, and completed his drive time without too much more drama. I'll just share the names in that 992 Redline car, by the way. You've got Gianni Vecchio, Diogo Pinto, Christopher Dambeat, Alexander Thiebert, and Jeff Giassi. 5 drivers with World Championship experience. That is a strong lineup.
Yeah, Jeff Giassi. I mean, I saw someone in chat asking if we had any Brazilian drivers. Jeff is, of course, one of the Brazilian drivers, and a super driver indeed. In fact, has again a bit of real world experience in Porsche Cup cars as well in his native Brazil. And Jeff always. How would I put this? His race shorts are very loud. They're like beach shorts. They're like bright yellow sort of colour. So he has his lucky race shorts for his racing.
Bringing the party to the race.
Oh yeah.
That real world experience that you speak of came through, you know, the virtual scene and his strength there. Porsche Brazil, after winning some of the national Porsche series in virtual racing, Porsche Brazil gave him a test session. From there, things then went to partnering up with one of the endurance races in the Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil with another driver. His practice before that was always on worn tires. He didn't understand what fresh rubber was really meant to feel like. So the first test session, he didn't feel like he was giving the performance that he thought he merited with his pace. But from there, it's just gone from strength to strength, and now is one more of those trailblazing on how sim racing can get you started in the real world. And also seems like a super nice guy. He used to race with the Apex Racing team, now with Team Redline. Plenty of experience. You'll notice Gianni Vecchio has slipped again to the tail end of this field. Punching the hole in the air means they're doing some slightly longer pit stops, not long enough to lose the draft.
Yeah, I think Gianni Vecchio will just quite happy to sit there, and as long as you keep stay in the draft of the 2 leading cars, Logitech, Altus and Kova, you can sit there quite comfortably and just pace himself through this stint or two. I would imagine we'll see him do a double stint, as has been the form. And such a good driver as Gianni Vecchio. I remember the Sebring 12-hour, the iRacing Sebring 12-hour last year, and Gianni Vecchio, the Porsche GT3 car really wasn't, GTLM car was just not really in the window performance-wise, and Gianni just dragged performance that no other driver could drag out of it in that race.
I think that described Gianni's frustration with Porsche in totality last year, where with their partnership with Porsche 24, they entered a bunch of Porsches for the special events and always seemed like they were on the back foot, except at Petit Le Mans, if I remember correctly. Watkins as well, of course, did go well for them. Here's a look at a replay at a pass for, I guess, third, and it looks like Luke Bennett getting down the inside of Bruno Spengler.
Yeah, nice move there from Luke Bennett in the Team Redline BMW. Bruno Spengler just gives in the room there, tucks in behind as the Porsche Cup train continues. 2 hours and 20 minutes into this race, and they have not left each other's bumper all the way through into Klostertal, hard on the brakes, down the gearbox, tucking it in nicely, and then up the hill towards the Caracciolo Carousel, named after Rudolf Caracciolo, who won the first car race here at the Nürburgring on the 19th of June 1927. Imagine that, in a compressor Mercedes, and did so with only having to change his Continental tyres once.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Tyre bill a lot cheaper than what some of these teams are paying.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Although it wasn't cars that was the first race here, it was actually motorcycles. 18th of June